You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 347, The Mandalorian Season 2, The Final Hype. So just as we've done with, well, just about everything that's come out recently as far as, new movie releases, new TV show releases, we try to give you this one final episode going into that premiere and give you a whole bunch of predictions and really just put ourselves out there for humiliation. So you're welcome. We're glad to do it. Half the stuff that we'll say tonight, I'm going to say more than half of it will be completely wrong, but it's fun nonetheless to speculate. So to help me make a fool of myself is Jonesy. Welcome to the show, Jonesy. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. I would never let you go alone in this endeavor to make a fool of yourself. It's important we do this together, brother.
Together, yes. We do have to do this together. So, no, I'm excited, man. I was just doing the math. We are 77. Was it 77? Now I've already
77, yeah.
77 hours away from the premiere of season 2. And
wait, hold on. This wasn't coincidence. You came up with 77
hours
ago, right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, purely coincidental. I didn't do that on purpose. By the way, I would like to take credit for it, but I did not do that intentionally. But yeah, 77 hours away. We really haven't had much lately. We have not talked about the most recent trailer teaser thing. I don't know. Some people were calling it trailer 2. Some people were calling it what was it, like a look or whatever they use, what marketing terminology they use, first look kind of thing. Right. But I thought we could start there and dig into that because there are some things in there that I think will play into some of the speculation that we've got here. But yeah, if you're ready to go, I am.
Let's do it, man. Let's get right into it.
So in the beginning of that trailer, I guess I'm going to keep calling it a trailer, but the one thing that stood out, and we talked about this in one of the previous episodes, I think is when we actually broke down the official trailer, and those are the X-Wings that are coming in. We said, okay, I think we both agree that it looked more like an escort, like a friendly service, collaboration of some sort. But this new trailer opens up with what sounds like an X-Wing pilot. It could not be. I mean, they may be tricking us here and pulling audio from somewhere else, but you hear Razor Crest stand down. They cut to the X-Wings following the Razor Crest. And so naturally we're led to believe, okay, well, maybe they are asking him to stand down. Maybe they are in pursuit of him. And maybe it does turn into a conflict or some kind of spaceship battle. So do you think that's the direction, or do you think they're trying to pull one over our eyes here?
I think they're trying to pull one on us. There's a lot of initial conflict in any kind of confrontation or the first time meeting or, first time coming into contact with someone is pretty typical, right?
Yeah.
You stand down or you lower your weapons or your shields or whatever it is might be that might seem aggressive in any kind of way. And you want to that initial contact. And so I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into this, but it's kind of cool though to think that there's some initial conflict that the Mandalorian and the child are trying to avoid trouble or trying to shoot their way out of trouble when maybe the reason isn't even trouble existing, but they're just in this frame of mind where they have to blast their way pretty much out of every scenario that they're in.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't put too much stock in this either. I still don't think that's the case. And I think they're splicing things together. Could be wrong. We're probably wrong. Who knows? All right. That's the first part. The other thing that was interesting is now we get what looks to be the Razor Crest coming into an ice planet, and it looks like it's spinning out of control. Cut to them, or thinking about the original trailer, we saw the child and Mandalorian standing there behind a spacecraft that we couldn't really truly identify. Right. It's now starting to look, based on the way that ship looked, or I guess the way the Razor Crest would look, it had some kind of turret on the front of it, which I don't recall seeing. Maybe that's a part of when it was collision or when it landed or crashed. Somehow that got lodged to the front. But now I guess is that really the Razor Crest? Really the one that we were thinking maybe could be the Clone Wars ship, or maybe it was the last ship that Ahsoka landed on or crashed in, that whole thing. Right. I don't know. I guess it's the Razor Crest now, right? Or do you think otherwise? It still has the orange, by the way, that orange in the background, but we see that on the Razor Crest. So
yeah, it's so unclear. I mean, it's such a quick shot. Sometimes you don't quite know if you see what you think you're seeing. So is it movie magic or something like that? Who knows? But I mean, I don't know. It's fun to speculate, though, right? I mean, who knows what it could be? I mean, we've got images in our mind of any kind of ship that's got these types of things and of what it might be. And of course, we know we have these ideas of, okay, well, could it be anything from the Ghost or any of these other types of ships that have this idea behind them, that they've got this turret, they've got this idea, or, this general structure to the ship that it could be. But again, it seems still like it's a Razor Crest. I mean, you have this out of control type of vibe. We've seen it in multiple shots now of the trailer, so it's still difficult to believe it's something other than the Razor Crest. But we'll have to see. I mean, it's all contextually based. What context is it really in when we see the grand scheme, when we actually see the full frame and we see everything around it in that moment and in that extended shot.
Yep. Okay, and then two last things. And the last one we'll save for a lot later because it's going to come up quite a bit. But the Mithral Returns. So this is the blue creature played by Horatio Sanz. He was last seen in episode 1 in Carbonite. So we were led to believe, okay, it was just a cameo appearance. We won't see him again. But again, so sorry if you're watching this and you're going in spoiler free. I do apologize, but this is actually released, and our policy is if it's been released by Lucasfilm or Disney, it's fair game. So we do see him in the cockpit of some ship. He's in there with both Kara and Grief. So he's back somehow. And do you got any? I'll just throw it out there. Do you have any theories as to? Because I didn't have him originally in the show notes, or maybe I did. I can't remember if I put him in there or not. But do you have any theories right now, just off the top of your head, why we would see him back again?
I really don't, because it was such an inconsequential character initially. Yeah. It was kind of a throwaway. It was just something to get our feet wet into the whole bounty hunter scene and to establish who the Mandalorian was. It was, for lack of a better word, a throwaway character in an important type of structure and environment and scene. So why is he back? I have no idea, because I didn't ask for him back. So Lucasfilm listens. I mean, they listen to our show, right? So I mean, they know what we want and what we don't want. So they know what they should put and not should put. So it seems like they would understand that we didn't really ask for him to come back, right?
Yeah.
Is that right, Albert?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I did. I don't have nothing against them, but it was, again, like you said, inconsequential.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
maybe there's something kind of cool there. I hope, again, at the end of the day, as long as it's a cool story, I'm down with it. It
is funny though. We had someone ask who ends up in Carbonite this episode, though. So it's a bit. There's a little irony there that we actually have the character that was in Carbonite coming out of it.
Yeah, they flipped it on us, and so I've got a whole theory now in terms of how he gets there, and again, completely wrong here, but I'm wondering if it somehow ties. So the Mithral was one of the last people that was churned in, and my gut tells me that if you couple that with where he's at, and again, I could be misled here, a red herring because of the way the second trailer was cut, but you see him in what looks to be one of those Imperial troop transport things, and they're driving in that ship, or he's in that thing with both Kara and Grief, and it looks like they're fleeing. So my mind goes to, okay, well, maybe he was turned over to the Empire for some reason, and I'm going to apologize if they actually said what he was wanted for, but just go with me. So he was wanted by the Empire. That was who the bounty ultimately was for. It got turned into the Empire. Maybe it was Moff Gideon himself. Maybe he's trying to track down Moff Gideon or something. But somewhere he feels like, the Mandalorian feels like, I need to trace this guy back because he's the last person to know something about either maybe Moff Gideon, maybe the client was after him for some reason. And so he's trying to figure out where to go with all of this. And so by doing that, he realizes the Mithral is the last person that he knows. He's got to go now and free him, and that turns into a rescue, if you will. They release him from Carbonite, they get him out of there, and he's got information that's going to lead to either more Mandalorians, more sorcerers, or something along the lines of with the child.
Yeah, and that's
pretty
a great
vague,
point.
I know, but
yeah, it is. I mean, we have so little to go on in this case.
Oh, I know.
The character in episode 1, we really had no idea why he had a bounty, much about his past, anything like that. It certainly seemed like he didn't know what a Mandalorian was. They were still, the creatures of mythology and that kind of thing. So that he would be looking for other Mandalorians seems a bit of a stretch at this point. But again, there has to be a reason why he's there. And so I'm with you. What is that reason? Is it because he is aware of like the sorcerer? I kind of like that angle actually of, is he a way to lead us to something else? Does he have some sort of knowledge? And we we find that out, throughout the episode. Maybe not the first episode, but maybe
Right.
a couple more. I would hate to have him come right back right away in
Yeah.
chapter 9.
There's got to
then
be a
all of a sudden-
compelling reason why they would go
Thank you.
rescue this character of all the other characters in the
Right.
entire galaxy. He's got to
Right,
have
and
something.
Yeah, and they have to establish something, right? To say that, okay, well, who knows something and this character does, and we have to go get him out of carbonite. I mean, there's a bit of a backstory there that we got to figure out too.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
And we kind of asked this originally, like, what is so important about this character, or is there anything important about the Mithral? Is there anything important? Because they had an actor who was semi-recognizable come in and do this. Is this something that's important for us to actually know that's going to be recurring? And I got to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised that we got this in maybe if you want to call it a trailer or what, our teaser, whatever it might be. But I'm a little surprised we got this, and I did not anticipate him coming back at all.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was it. The last thing was, and like I said, we'll tackle this a little bit later. But there's a point in there where the Mandalorian actually says, "I need to locate other Mandalorians," and that opens a whole nother can of worms. So that was the first time we heard that, and we're certainly going to speculate on that here in just a little bit. So before we dive into the main beef or grief or the main part of the show, yeah.
Wow. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. The main part of the show here. If you're joining us live on Facebook, YouTube, whether you're here now, coming in later, you guys are more than happy to, or welcome to jump in the conversation too. So if you guys have your own theories, speculation, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll call them out if we got time and all that. We got through quite a bit here. So, but yeah, we want this to be as interactive as possible, especially for this show, since it's all really speculation and theory and everything's fair game. So, hey, you may have better stuff than I do. You probably do. That would be my guess. So I thought we would start with something pretty light. I want to go through a couple of these planets, and I want you to just tell me off the top of your head if you feel like we're going to see these planets. Are we going to visit these planets in one way? And if you got a theory as to why we get there, cool. If not, that's fine too. But some of this may just be fanboy. So I'll start with probably the most obvious, Tatooine. Are we going to go back to Tatooine? Is that what we saw in the original trailer?
I hope not, because we've been back there too often, I think. But there's a pretty good chance we're going to go back. I mean, we have to wrap up a bit of the Fennec story, right?
Yeah,
we have to understand what was going on there. Where did she? Where did we leave that off? Who was it with the jingling of the spurs and the boots? And is she really dead, or is she coming back to life? We have to understand what was going on there. So there's a real chance we go back. We don't need to go back, I don't think, but is it possible we go back? Yeah, I think there's actually a fair degree of certainty, 60, 70%, that we have to revisit Tatooine for some reason, even if it's just briefly. What about you? Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, I think it's a good possibility. In fact, I'm willing to put a percentage on this and just call it 90% chance that we're going to hit Tatooine. We're going to go back to Tatooine. One, because of the Fennec storyline, right? That was the last known place. We know that she said that there was the whole background there where she said whoever she was working for had sent her out there, right? So all of that, plus the spurs, that whole thing, I think is a given. We're going to go back there to see all of that. The other part of this is kind of maybe the more obvious ones, or is Boba Fett, and we'll get to him in a minute. We'll get to him a little bit later when we talk about the characters, but we have very good reason at this point to believe that he is, and although has not been officially announced by every main media source that's out there, they've all pretty much confirmed that he is going to be in the show. And I say he, the actor. But I do like the idea that that's Boba Fett. And there's also that clip where you look at the back of the speeder bike that Mando's taken off on. We miss that if that really truly is. But once you freeze frame that and you slow it down, it looks as though he does have Boba Fett's armor strapped to the back of his pack when he's taken on and he's leaving on what looks to be Tatooine. So I think if those two are probably good reasons as to why he would be back. The other part of this is if he really truly is in search of other sorcerers, we've toyed with the theory that maybe he is going around to different planets, tracing the trails of the Jedi. There's very good reason to believe that he maybe not Ben Kenobi's hut, but that could be something he discovers later on this season. Maybe somebody tells him about it. He could be going there for that. There's Skywalker Ranch, a.k.a. the Lars homestead.
I thought we were going to California.
No, sorry. I keep calling it Skywalker Ranch ever since the Rise of Skywalker. But, it could be Lars homestead if he's tracing down the tracks of either Anakin or, Luke himself there may be a reason for him to go there.
Right.
And then finally, it could be Anakin's home. If it really gets, if you want to get really deep into the weeds here in terms of what his research, where his research goes, maybe he's going there. But I think there's enough between all of that I think it's good reason to believe that they would go back to Tatooine for something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, all signs kind of point to it. We can't seem to escape Tatooine, even if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So the gravitational pull of this planet is insatiable of what we're able to actually get away from or avoid in the Star Wars universe. Of all planets, for some reason, Tatooine seems to have more pull and more interest and more importance than pretty much everywhere else in the galaxy. I don't understand why this is. It's back where we're playing in the Outer Rim.
Yeah, center of the universe.
That's right.
Okay, next one, Ilum, aka
Ice planet.
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
Mysterious ice planet. Do you think we're going back to Ilum?
Oh God, I hope so. I really do hope so. I would love to see Ilum, for lack of a better word, canonized, like on screen with at least a live action screen. I think it would be fantastic to really see what this planet looks like with kind of our own eyes, if you will. Any kind of leftover kyber or just anything about it would be so amazing to see. But what's difficult is I don't know if that's the fanboy in me coming out or if that's reality. And I know our buddy Mike believes that it's Hoth. He's telling us in the chat it's Hoth. I don't want to believe it's Hoth because I would much rather have us have a quote unquote new planet or something that people are less familiar with than Hoth, so that we can stop with the fan service type of aspect of it and not feel like we're continuing with the fan service aspect of it and do too much in that space. So I would really love to see Ilum in this space. But Mike has a point though of if it is Hoth, that makes a lot of sense because we've revisited places and we've had so many references throughout the first 8 chapters that suggest that we are really talking, or that we're really playing it up as things that we're familiar with, things that are still important that we've not visited in 7, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever it is between Return of the Jedi or even Empire Strikes Back in this moments here.
Yeah.
But so I would love to say like 90, 100, 90, 95% it was Ilum, but I do have this shadow of doubt called Mike Rondo in the back of my head that's telling me that it's really something that we're already familiar with, just so that people recognize it. What do you think?
Well, I don't subscribe to Mike Rondo's theories. I've learned over the years they're just as horrible as mine. No, I'm kidding.
They're far worse, by the way.
They're far worse, but mine are really bad too. No, I don't. So my thing with Hoth is, and we talked about this before, but to reiterate, I had a really hard time getting to how we get to Hoth. Like where's the connected tissue between what's happening in The Mandalorian and what was going on Hoth? That is a isolation, like a complete desolate ice planet. There's nothing there. If they do go back to Hoth, then they're really digging in deep for something like, oh, you didn't know about this, and surprise, there really is some compelling reason for them to go to Hoth. I think Ilum is more it fits more into the narrative of what's going on right now. We've got the Empire stopping all their all the progress they were making to kind of excavate all of that. We've got the New Order, the First Order coming in, and maybe we get a sense of that. We had the Ahsoka novel, so there was a touchstone there where we got to feel what was going on with her visiting and what that was like. So I think there's enough there to make a better argument for some place like Ilum. And then if you want to go even further, I have this in my head that he's going in, and suddenly Baby Yoda, as they're walking through these caves, some crystal's gonna just start flashing like, hey, I'm yours, come take me. So and neither one of them is going to really know what's going on, right? Out of nowhere, this green, purple, yellow crystal highlights, it starts glowing just like we've seen in the Clone Wars.
Right.
And so they grab this crystal, and now they've got another thing to contend with. What is this thing? Why is it glowing? These are all answers that somebody like Ahsoka, who we know took younglings there at one point, would be able to kind of answer later down the road, or any of the other rumored Jedi to be in this series. So again, that's a lot of headcanon there. But I think if they go to someplace like Ilum, I think it goes back to they're on the trail of sorcerers and they know Ilum is a place of long ago, ancient, had a lot of temples, a lot of power in the Force and the sorcerer ways, and maybe that's how they get there.
Yeah, and Mike Sellis in the chat, they're looking for Luke. It would make sense that we go to Hoth for Luke. But I'm with you though. I think from a story and narrative aspect, it makes a lot more sense to be more Jedi centric, and so broaden this horizon a bit to be able to say that it's something that compels and draws Jedi in general. That makes a lot more sense to me. And again, to a crystal or something that draws the child or something like that, that really has some, effect that we can't really understand and that we would like to see, in front of us and on screen and be able to speculate what that is. I think it's far more interesting than, well, Luke Skywalker was here for all of about a week or a month or 3 months or whatever it was that they were on Hoth for. And rather than there's a trace of someone in the Force, I'd rather there much be something, more concrete in the Force. Like, this is an important planet. This is vital to what a Jedi is and is to become throughout their growth and their path throughout their journey. And so I'm with you. I really hope that this becomes Ilum, because there's just so much more you can do with it rather than Hoth. That's more of a footnote in history of a battle than, presumably really anything else.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's a good one. Maybe a more obvious one, but either Mandalore or Concordia, the moon. Do you think we would have any reason to go back there this season? I'm putting a little asterisk there because.
Oh, that's a tough one, because I think the question is, do we need to?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the answer to that is no, we don't. I mean, we know Mandalore can be whatever the Mandalorians want it to be for the most part. I mean, we know we have a place, right? We have it from the Clone Wars, we have it from Rebels, but I hope not. I don't think we really need it. I like the idea of now Mandalorians and Mandalore itself being more of this nomadic type of perspective and this nomadic tribe of sorts, where you don't have a concrete place of origin. You don't have a singular place that everyone congregates at. And it would make a lot more sense within the story now, because we don't know, or as we get clarity, maybe is better. Maybe another part of the question is, as we get clarity as to what's happened with the Mandalorians.
Yes.
We have a better idea that it's not in one place, and we have this more concrete idea that it's wherever we make it to be. And like you were talking about, and some of the things you shared with us a couple weeks ago, about what Mandalore really truly is, and what the creed really is, and what the culture is fundamentally and deep down. Those things, I would like to see those things be brought forth in more importance and support what the cultural aspect of it is, less so than this is where I'm from and I need to go back there because of XYZ. Like, no, this is the makeshift Mandalore now. And so I would much rather see it from that respect, rather than this is where they come from or something like that. Because if they're looking for the child's, people, it doesn't seem to fit very well unless they're looking for specific Mandalorians. So, I mean, there's a tangential connection there, but overall story, I don't know if it really drives much of that. So I don't need to see it. And so I'm kind of hoping we don't really need to see it or want to see it at that point. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I'll give you my thoughts here. Just a quick shout out. So Steph's with us tonight. Vader's girl, welcome back. Glad that you're here. Phil's with us. Mike Rondo is in and out. He's gone.
Dominic, yeah.
Dominic just made it. Jeremiah, good to see you, buddy. Thank you all for being here tonight as we continue on with the show. Okay, so and Jeremiah put in there, I stand by the prediction that Graffiti Planet is ruined downtown Mandalore. Very possible. We don't know what the Siege of Mandalore did to that planet. We know that at the end of Rebels, well, no, I'm thinking of Lothal, not sorry. So, but yeah, we don't know. We don't really have a whole lot of details in terms of what Mandalore looks like. I think that's a possibility. So my quick thought around whether we go to Mandalore or Concordia, at some point I think we do, because, and this is again what you were saying, we don't know where this story is headed, right? Is the story about just them two and the child growing in the Force, or is this really about the Mandalorian, Din eventually getting the Darksaber and going back to Mandalore and reuniting the clans? And do they stay in Mandalore, or do they go back to their old ways where they're nomadic, like you said? But I think at some point we do go to Mandalore. I think we do go to Concordia. I have some theories on that a little bit later when we get into some of the characters that we were hoping to see in this season that we've not really talked about too much. So I won't get into those just yet. But again, I think if it does happen, it happens maybe at the tail end of season 2. Like, this has to be something that they're going to carry into season 3. I don't think they have time to put that seed in here and allow that to flourish over the course of 8 episodes or whatever, in this condensed season like this. It's not condensed, but short.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but Ryman or Riemann 6000, great opportunity to bring in some of the lesser known planets in the Star Wars and even Legends into it. And I happen to agree. I mean, we don't have to keep visiting the planets that we know. let's broaden our horizon. We have a whole new audience now that we can expose to all the different aspects of Star Wars lore and the Star Wars planets and things like that. And I would love to be able to show this to them, that there really is so much more that you've missed in cartoons and whatever it might be, in the books and whatever, that we can bring this forward. We don't have to necessarily spend a lot of time there, but let's get a flavor for it about why it's important and what that history is, and bring this into, again, kind of funneling it more into a, quote unquote, mainstream type of idea.
Phil said Nar Shaddaa. Nar Shaddaa is a possibility when you think about the Gamorrean fighting that's going on there, and then that planet was littered for thousands of years. It's kind of like the cartel planet, right? It's like the Vegas of places, and you've got every bad person that you can think about, every mischievous thing that's going on in the galaxy, that entire planet. It's ripe for all of that, and it always has been. So, I mean, maybe they do something like that. That would be a deep cut, because they really don't talk about Nar Shaddaa quite a bit in canon. It's more of a Legends place than anything else.
Right. But again, it's great. I mean, just expand the universe that we're used to, expand the galaxy. Love the idea.
Okay. This one's really far-fetched. I threw it purely fanboy at this point, but Mustafar. Any chance we can go to Mustafar?
I'm certainly see a reason to go to Mustafar. We have so many other planets we could or should go to, that I'm going to put Mustafar like 5%, probably less than that. I'm just doing that for the people who love Mustafar, but I don't see a reason to go back there. You have the Vader connection, you have the Anakin connection, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happen in that moment. But again, if you're searching for someone, you tend not to go to the places that things are all dead. So and maybe that's all the more reason to go, but I really just don't see the need to go there. And if I'm thinking budget-wise, I got to be honest, I'm not going to go invest in lava and everything for visual effects either, if I'm more practical about things. But I'm going to put this at very, very low.
Yeah, me too. I threw it again. It's purely fanboy. I'll give it a 2% chance, maybe 5 if I'm feeling generous. To be honest, and even if they do, like, what's the point? It's one of those planets that they teased in Rogue One. We had an opportunity to call it out in The Rise of Skywalker, and they didn't. So unless you read the novel or you just are keeping up with these things, then it was in The Rise of Skywalker. But, a lot of people don't know the background. They don't know the history. So again, it goes back to what would be the reason? What's the motive to go to some place like that? I don't know what that is, but in my head, when they get there, it would be cool if they actually got to meet the Oracle, and the Oracle talks to them, and you realize, again, this is a character that was in the novelization. You've seen all the creepy screenshot or creepy artwork that came out for something like that. But again, I'm really stretching too far for like my own headcanon and theories. By the way, you should be at this point, please put on your tinfoil hats if you haven't done so already.
Right. It's about, and again, I think what you're saying is, it's about finding something that leads you to the next step, right? Yeah. Something that you can build on, something you can grow from. And it's difficult without adding a lot of backstory behind it to understand the why there is to it. It's like, what can I do? What can I explain that's more, I'm not trying to dumb this down, but just something that's more simple, something that's more concise, more that, it's tighter, right? That you can actually, convey to an audience and help them understand where they're at is important. And then they find something that's vital to that. And you don't have to spend a lot of time doing it in the process. So I think those types of things cannot be overshadowed. And I know that's not as much fun as, maybe what we've been doing lately with the show, but those types of things you have to really keep tight. We still only have 8 chapters, right? So we need to make sure that we still have a tight, right? And this is the thing we loved about the first season, is that the chapters were relatively tight. Yeah, we were able to go on some kind of excursions and some adventures in the process and explore some places, but overall, we're still a bit of a tight story of what we need to experience for these 2 characters in particular, speaking of the Mandalorian and the child in particular.
Okay. Here's a fun one. Lothal. Do you think we'll go back to Lothal?
Man, it's really hard to say no to this, right? With Filoni at the helm.
Right.
It's really hard. I mean, for that alone, is there a reason for them to go to Lothal?
Maybe. So, and I thought I put some thought into this because I'm you guys know, I'm a huge Rebels fan, and I was trying to will this into existence. So here is what I came up with. I think, again, it goes back to the trail thing. If he does get wind that there was a Mandalorian named Sabine and there was a sorcerer named Ahsoka, and together they were together as part of a group, he's got 2 things he's looking for, right? More Mandalorians and somebody to take the kid off his hands. Then he's going to probably find out that the last place that they were known at would be Lothal, right? We see before they took off on their quest to go find Ezra, we had that shot of Sabine looking, standing in the tower which was basically the very opening scene that we got from Rebels. It was really cool that they did that, but that was the last place that they were seen, right? So maybe it does lead him there, and that's where it got me thinking. Okay, well maybe he goes there to go find either one of those. And what we see as the graffiti planet is Lothal. Lothal was restored, right? They ran the Empire out at the very end of Rebels, and we know that beyond that, it went to a place of glory. I guess this is, a better word or lack of a better word. And because the Empire was so deterred with trying to take down Luke Skywalker, the events of Empire Strikes Back, and then finally with the Return of the Jedi, we have every reason to believe at this point that Lothal stayed in pretty good shape, pretty good order. But what if it didn't? What if it did turn into what we see as that graffiti planet? And that's what kind of led him there. So I think there's a reason for him to go there if he is on the trail of either one of those two, simply because that was the last place that they were seen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, is there a reason to be there? Sabine is a fantastic reason to be there, and we know that there was a lot of activity around Lothal, so that planet makes sense. I mean, besides the the floating connection to it, and it makes sense for us to be there. I hope we don't need to venture into World Between Worlds territory though. So for the folks who are really excited about that, I don't expect that. I think at the very least, I would love a reference to Lothal though. I would love to be able to see that we have some reference to it to kind of bridge it in between these different mediums. I think that would be fun. I think that would be interesting, kind of like we did with the Lothcat, right? Just something that's a little teaser, just a nod and a wink to the people who watch these other shows and these other connections to the Star Wars galaxy and the universe. I think are always fun. But I'm with you. I would love to see the after effects of something and to revisit a planet there. We left it at one point. What does it look right now, several years later, and just have an idea? But again, I want us to be there for a reason. I actually want us to find something. I like the idea of a quest. I love World of Warcraft. Everybody knows this, but I love the idea of a quest, right? But at the same time, if we're in a quest or we're in a place, I want us to actually find something. I love the idea of a MacGuffin, but you still have to. The MacGuffin has to be somewhat tangential. You have to be able to actually touch it and tangible, and it needs to be something you can actually grab or be within reach of to have any kind of importance to it and have that gravity. That it's that vital to the story, and I just don't want us to have throwaway moments in the series. And I think Lothal is one of these that you could very well have this part of it, and it be an integral part of the story, or at least an interesting, not footnote, but an interesting moment in the story, an interesting milestone in the story.
So depending on how much they want to get, and I can give you something that's tangible. Again, now I'm really stretching here a little bit, but there is, if you think about it. If he is on the trail of the Jedi, this would take some pretty deep research or some very acute knowledge from somebody like Luke or someone else, right? But that is one of the few places we know a Jedi temple still exists. Now, at the in Rebels, they erected it right at the very end we had the Mortis thing, right? They did all the stuff and it went back underground, and that was kind of it. But it didn't get destroyed. It's not gone. It's been researched. It's below the ground again where it's always been. And this is a temple that's been around for thousands of years, right? So if he had to go to a temple, or if somebody like Ahsoka paired up with them and, she's like, hey, we got to go to this temple because that's maybe they confer with Yoda like Ezra did and Kanan did, right? Maybe that's an option to figure out, okay, how do we get this child there? And again, I'm thinking like way further in season 2 here. But if they go visit the temple again, I think what would be really cool is the way you open that temple is you have to have 2 Jedi, right? You have to have a master and a Padawan, and together they have to do what they need to do to raise the temple up. So that would mean somebody like Ahsoka and maybe the child doing that. Again, I'm really stretching here, but there could be a reason that they go back, and that would be your tangible piece, as they're in search of a Jedi temple, and there's really not many of them left at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and the unspoken question is, how do we know about these places if we're not Jedi or if we're not Force sensitive? And the child, for what we know, even still cannot speak the language of the Mandalorian. I mean, they have a connection. I think we and I both agree on this front. But at the same time, they don't have any way of really accurately communicating with one another to be able to say, yes, this planet, there's something about it. I feel the Force in this way. Let's plot these coordinates, and I've got some innate ability to influence where we're going. So again, it has to make sense of why we're heading in a direction. And what I don't like is the idea of just dumb luck of stumbling over planet after planet after planet that have importance, because that seems a bit, fan derivative at that point. And I'd rather as much have a reason to be there and there be some story aspect to it that we land in a place that we do.
All right. What are you giving Lothal?
Well, Lothal, I'd probably give. I don't want to go this low, but I'm guessing like a 25% chance, maybe upwards of 50, but I'm going to go with 25.
All right. I'll go with 26 since we're playing the Price is Right game. And I'm
Wow.
thinking like 40%.
Cheap move.
I know, cheap. And a penny. No, 20.
Right.
I go 40% Lothal. And that's just, there's probably 15% that's inflated just for my love of Rebels. So there you go.
Right.
How about Coruscant?
Ooh, I have no reason to go to Coruscant, so I'm going to say 5%. I just don't see a reason to go back.
I don't think so either. I think we go there, and I think it would be cool to go there because we've really only been there a couple times, and outside of in canon and movies, right? Video games, all that, a little bit different. But I would love to go back to Coruscant and get an update on how things are looking. Although it really isn't kind of the central place that at this point like it used to be, right? Now that's moving to the Hosnian Prime system. We know that was already set up with the New Republic. So, is there again a really compelling reason, at least at this point? Maybe. I think it's a 50-50 chance that if we did, but I can't see at this point why I would be in season 2 of all things.
Right. And again, you have people trying to lay low, at least where we left the last season. We're trying to lay low. Does it make sense to go to effectively the center of the galaxy? And that's a tough stretch to try to get on board with.
Okay. Last one before we get into some of the characters.
Yep.
Camino.
Ooh, I would really love to go back to Camino. When you posted this in the notes, I hadn't even really, I haven't given it much thought or spent a lot of time thinking about it. But the more I did, man, I would love to see what Camino looks like at this point. Like, especially if it was dilapidated and it was deteriorated. And I got to be honest, the Caminoans, like, have them knocked down a step or two. Just that smug look that they have on their face. They deserve it.
Right.
But I mean, it's just, I would love to go back and see what the state of this place is. And again, if we were talking about cloning or adapting the child's DNA or things like that, that would make sense to be there. But I would just love to be able to see what it was like at this point, especially if it was significantly different. If it was really deteriorated to the point where we barely recognize it of sort, and we see a very different version of this society that just, quite honestly, had a very highfalutin opinion of themselves, and they could do no wrong. And now, granted, they might very well still be the exact same way they've always been, but with a different customer. But I would love to see it in a very different place than what we have. I'm going to let you go with the percentage opportunity, or like what percentage chance of this might be, though, because I like the idea, but I just don't know how likely it is.
Okay, so there's two reasons why they could possibly be going to Camino, and you've already touched on one.
Right.
If Dr. Pershing or someone else is indeed, I mean, we saw the patch on his arm, right? He had the Camino patch. If he is somehow hired by them, works for them, and is extension of them, the Caminoans or Kaminoans or whatever they're called, then that's probably eventually he makes his way there because of that, and trying to determine what was wanted with the child and to ultimately protect him. He's got to eliminate that threat so there's not a need for him or want for him. That's one. The second one is Jango Fett. Yep. Jango Fett was there. He lived there. We know he has ties there. He's in search of other Mandalorians. He may not know all the intricacies and the details of what kind of a person Jango Fett was, other than he was a very well-known bounty hunter who lived on Camino. And maybe he finds out that the clones that were used in the fabled Clone Wars were all clones of this person. And so that's a very compelling reason for him to go seek out someplace like Camino to get more information about. Maybe there's a group of Mandalorians there that have ties to the Clone Wars, who then have ties to the sorcerers and the Jedi, and it all kind of leads together, this breadcrumb trail, if you will. So I think those are two good reasons for it. I want to put again, who cares? I'm going to get all this wrong anyways. I'm going to go with 60% that we get out to Camino.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, Jeremiah in the chat has got a great example too of, maybe the Mando needs to find out what Gideon wants from the child. And that's a great, again.
Hold that, because I've got that question later on. Stop looking at my notes, Jeremiah. It's not fair.
Right. Yeah. So there's this connection. Maybe that was, so I will go straight to the percentage, since I don't want to steal your thunder here, because I can tell how animated you are.
Jeremiah's stealing my thunder. How dare he?
I know, right? Well, he's there every week, so he's learning. He knows who you are now at this point. Yeah, you have a tell apparently. I'm going to go like 30%. Yeah, 30%. I know I'm being pretty pessimistic on some of this stuff, but I'm going to go 30% because, again, I don't know, how much we would linger there, and we have to have almost. I think when we go to a planet, we almost have to be there for a whole episode. And I don't know if we need to be there for a whole episode for Camino, although it probably has a better use case than some of the other planets that we've talked about so far.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into some of the supporting cast members. And we can make this as quick as you want, but I just want to know, where do we find them when we see them? And if we see them. Okay,
Yeah.
if we see them, where do we see them? And then any other thoughts you might have around, predictions, speculation as to why they show up. And I'm going to start with a big baddie, Miss Armorer. So the Armorer herself, are we going to see her in season 2 and answer those questions?
Oh God, I hope so, because she's amazing. I mean, she gets me excited outward in ways I can't admit to my to my family.
Another.
Right? Yeah. I mean, no, I really hope so, because she's really cool. First of all, I mean, just a cool character, and again, the lines she has, and the what she has with the Mandalorian culture in general. She has to be there, right? I mean, are you with me that there's like an 80-90% at least, bordering on 100, that she has to be in this season? Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Yeah, no.
if you want, I'll give you the rest of my theory, but let me know if you're done.
Where she's at is the real question, though. Do we keep going? I mean, we know we're going back to Navarro, so presumably she's still on Navarro, is my guess. So I'm going to go with near 100%, and we probably still go back and see her on Navarro for some reason. Although it would make a lot of sense for her to be somewhere else. But go ahead, give me your.
So I think you said it. I think when we know he goes back to Grief and Kara and says, "I need your help." We saw that in the most recent trailer, or the second piece of that, whatever it was. He says, "I need your help." He's going to go on this quest. While he's there, I think he checks in with the Armorer to see how things are going. I think at this point she's still there. She's still melting stuff, whatever she's doing. But in my head, I think she tells him, "Hey, you're doing the right thing. You need to find where this child goes, whatever. And by the way, when you're done with all of this, I need you to meet up with me on Concordia, or I need you to meet up with me on Mandalore." And again, I'm going to presume that, at least in this theory, that they're setting up for Mandalorian to take Mandalore back. But meet me and the Covent, and she gives them an update. They're on the moon of Concordia. They've set up shop there, or whatever. We're gathering our forces because we need to infiltrate Mandalore and liberate Mandalore, because there's still Imperials there, or maybe some other group has now. Maybe there's a cartel that's taken over ever since the Empire fell. I don't know, but something tells me in my head that they're going to need to liberate Mandalore, and she tells him that once this is all over, meet up with me on Concordia. And maybe that's how season 2 ends, him meeting up with that group of people, including the Covenant and the Vizslas and everybody else.
That'd be a great way to end the season. I gotta be honest with you. I would rather see that at the end of the season rather than the first. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. The Covent, do we see them?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have to. I mean, we have to, in some capacity, whether it's the one that we've seen on Navarro, or if it's them somewhere else, or even a different one. I think in general, do we see Mandalorians in a comment? I think we have to. I think there's no mistake that we need to, because we've seen them before. We know what the importance is. We need. It's kind of, you were talking about a little bit about this before. When you look at the way that stories are told, especially in this kind of genre, you have kind of the sage old wizard that guides, and this is what Obi-Wan Kenobi was in the original scripts, right? He's kind of this person that guides, the main hero, the character through their arc, and kind of guides them along this path and this journey. And I view the Armorer and even the Covenant as kind of this, as that body that helps keep him on the straight and narrow. Helps keep him on that path. Mm-hmm. And for him to touch base, even just once or twice in the season, I think is important to do, to keep him grounded, and to keep us grounded as viewers in the culture, and in what is important to these, and where we're at in a broader sense. Because again, if we look at just from Din's perspective, we're going to have a very narrow view of where they're at and what we're trying to do. And I think we still need something to broaden our horizons a bit, and just kind of broaden our perspective as to where everything is at any given moment, and where we're headed. So I think that's really important to see. So I think it's almost 100% we're going to see some aspect show up in this regard.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree 100%. I think she is right now, and I used this word earlier, so I apologize for using it again, but she's a touchstone for him. She is the one that all of the storylines that we've seen so far are being driven. She's quarterbacking this. You need to go here. You need to do this. Have you done that? Great. Here's this. We keep going back to her, and I think that's a really cool recipe. I like the fact that they don't overuse her either, that they use her in that capacity as the de facto leader, the wise old wizard. That's, back to Joseph Campbell's thing, right? Having somebody like that to kind of lead him. So I do think she does show up. I think they do show up, or at least if they do, it's at the very end of the season, if you follow my theory that he's going to meet up with them at the very end. What would be really cool is if he got there and realized that they had grown in numbers. that through the actions of what happened in season 1 and through the actions of what happens in season 2, especially if he does get hold of the Darksaber, which, hold that thought, if he gets a hold back of the Darksaber at the very end of season 2, what if suddenly just by sheer, the rumors, or as word starts to spread that there is now a Mandalorian who has the Darksaber again, and he's done all these great things, that people are naturally flocking to Concordia even without him asking for it, because they want to be ruled again. They want to take back Mandalore, and they've heard these rumors of somebody like the Mandalorian who travels with the child and has this other group, and he gets there and suddenly the Coven is like, 3-4 times strong and continuing to grow. I mean, I think that sets up a pretty exciting a series of events that could happen in season 3 and play out if they go that route.
Right. And I do like the idea of if you're, the stories start to accumulate, and the idea that there is something that is worth, not conforming, but kind of congregating to, and creating a new, centralized culture, if you will. So I really do like that theory. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Dr. Pershing, we talked about him already.
Yeah.
Does he show up, and what's he doing? Why?
I mean, I hope so, because I think he had an important aspect of the story of like, why do they want the child? What's important about the Empire? And we know the Empire is front and center in this season. And it would make a lot of sense for him to make another appearance and to help us understand what's going on. Now, is he still working for the Empire? Does he get taken from the Empire? I think those are things that are probably more, if he shows up, those are more likely to happen, right? They want to understand why he's so important. We get some sort of, monologue as to what's going on about why the Empire wants it. We haven't had an epic monologue, Albert. It's important to have every show an epic monologue from a villain.
Yeah.
I don't think we can disagree on that.
No.
So
absolutely
yeah,
not.
but I mean, so we need something that gives us that evidence as to what really they're looking for. And this is one of the questions we really wanted answered is to what is it that they want to actually do? We have a lot of speculation, and I don't think we're really all that far off on our speculation, but it would be nice to have some sort of confirmation as to what the Empire really wants. And if it's something different than what we've speculated, that would be really cool to see what that might actually be, because honestly, we've kind of feel like we've covered the main basis of what we think it is most likely to be. But where is he at? I don't know, though. That's a really good question. Is he still in Navarro? That seems less likely. I would like for him to be one of the things that they pursue, and one of the people that they chase down, to understand more about them. Because again, he has knowledge. Even if he doesn't have a connection, he has knowledge. So is it someone that they can go and approach and chase down and have knowledge of it? And quite honestly, a character like Pershing seems to have the ability to for them to be able to track, because they're not very good at covering their tracks. They're pretty obvious about where they are. They have the ability to go and find these type of people. So I would love to see Pershing come back. I'm pessimistic about how reasonable that might be, but I would love to put this at like 75-80%, because I think he could really help the story and and fill some of that gap that we don't have today.
Yeah. So you actually said a lot of the things I had in my notes, but I think it's a high percentage that we do see him. I'm going to say the only logical place, unless he turns into a quest item itself, right, where they got to go find him for some reason, I think he's still on Navarro. And at this point, if you think about it, what does he have left, right? His boss, at least the most immediate boss, who he probably didn't have a very good relationship with anyways, because this guy wanted to kill him. And I'm going to put him into the stereotype of the stereotypical scientist who is really about the science more than anything else. That's probably likely why he didn't want the child dead to begin with. Apart from the just the fascination with the species that is, force sensitive and something he wants to learn more about, I think there's probably some good in him. And I think when they find him on Navarro, he doesn't have a purpose anymore. And I think he has vital information as to where this child originated. If anybody would know, it's probably somebody like him, because they've been in search of this thing, right? So they've got to have some contextual history here as to what the child is, where he came from, who's after him, why, all that. So all that plays into it. But it would be really interesting if suddenly he joined forces with the Mandalorian, and the Mandalorian says, look, you got nothing here, or just tells him, you're coming with me and I'm taking you with me on this quest. It would be cool to see him paired up with somebody like that, because the body language, the personalities, totally different. I think it would create a really cool dynamic. And you could have him as the science officer if you want to echo Star Trek or something, right? Where he's there, or maybe he creates a relationship with the child off screen whenever the Mandalorian's not around, right? So it would be kind of interesting to see him go and travel. Now, I'm not saying he needs to be a permanent crew member like Kara and like Grief and everybody else, but you got to think about it. he's going to need new crew members. I would imagine. It looks like the Mithral may be a new crew member, but what if the scientist comes along? What if he has a change of heart and it really changes? His character growth changes. That would be pretty dramatic for him to go down that path.
Right. And you know what? Morally ambiguous characters are interesting because you don't always know where they sit on things. And I think with a character like the child and with the doctor, right? I mean, let's just call him the doctor at this point. If you're gonna throw Star Trek, let's go and throw Doctor Who in here too. But when you have a morally ambiguous character that's just about the science, I think that's really, really interesting because you can all of a sudden you've got this idea of his motives are completely different than what everybody else's, what they are, either protection or exploitation or whatever it is. It's just interest in scientific knowledge of to what's possible and not wanting to kill the specimen because you want to learn from it and do more with it. And, is there something more from that? That would also be an interesting, corruptible idea of what we have with these types of characters. But to the science aspect of it, I don't know if I want him to be a science officer type of thing, but I think the idea of him being this morally ambiguous scientific type of character, I think is fantastic to where he's just middle of the road. I just want to know what this thing is. I want to know what it can do. I want to know what I can do with it, with respect, rather than I want to make $1 off it or I want to exploit it for for my own personal benefit.
Yeah. Right. Or maybe he's wanted by the Empire at this point too for not
Good
following
point.
through or whatever, right? So maybe he has a vested interest in going with somebody like the Mandalorian for nothing else other than protection and safety. So,
right. And if we want to tie people to planets, I mean, Pershing is a great example to end up on Camino.
Absolutely.
And that type of thing, right? So if you have Pershing, then maybe there's an opportunity to go to Camino because, like you said, there's the patch and there's clearly some sort of cloning type of connection there.
Right. Fennec Shan. So,
yeah,
I think you were of the opinion she was dead, though, right?
I still think she's dead. I mean, this isn't Marvel, but Mike reminded us earlier. No one's really dead in Star Wars either. I mean, it's like a comic book these days. So anybody could be alive anytime we want them to be. But I just don't. I kind of think it was a tease to whoever this other character is, rather than this. Now, what's really disappointing though is that the actor they had for this is fantastic, and to kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, waste her on this type of role and into kind of a one and done type of thing is really disappointing. But at the same time, I don't know that we need her. But there was an interesting aspect of the story, if we recall. Like she said that someone that she's working for would be very interested in this, would pay handsomely, and that type of thing. So there's clearly somebody else out there. So is it someone that we already know? Is it Gideon, or is it someone else entirely that we have yet to be introduced to where if this character did come back, that we would be that there would be some value and some importance to that. I don't. Again, we start. There's so many things so many avenues we could go. It's one of these things of like, okay, well, how much is too much? Let's keep it tight. Let's keep it clean. Let's keep it straightforward. And I'm going to put Fennec at probably, let's just call it like 35%.
35%. Yeah, this one's hard to kind of nail down. I think, we've got a lot of different storylines in play here. And I think that's fine. It's good. You want that, right? You don't want a linear story in your storytelling. All the greatest TV series, movies have multiple threads that are going on. You look at Star Wars as a recipe, right? You've got the space battle, you've got the land battle, and you've got some kind of Jedi thing going on as well, or confrontation, right? So from that, I think this is a storyline that we don't have a lot of information on, assuming it's not connected to assuming it's not connected to I need to find more Mandalorians, assuming it's not connected to I need to find sorcerers or find this place for the child, then this is an entirely different thread that's probably more personal to, assuming it's Boba Fett or whoever. It seems like it's very personal to Mando and to be played out a little bit later. So we don't have a lot to go on, I guess is what I'm saying. I think she's probably still alive. To your point, I don't think they would waste her in that way. I mean, if they were able to spare the Mithral for the character that he was, I think they would spare her.
I mean, no, without a doubt, I would rather have her over the Mithral.
Right. I don't know. Maybe he'll change our hearts here. Like we're kind of being hard on him. But anyways, so yeah, I think if she's still alive, maybe she was rescued, she was saved. She hadn't been dead that long. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, whether or not we see her, I don't know. Maybe, but again, there's already so many things going on that we've thrown out there, so it's hard to fit her in or fit that storyline as well. Right. So, but yeah, I say she's still around. Okay,
I think one of the important things, though, even when we had 8 chapters before, we were able to, like, each chapter really did kind of feel like a unique story. So I think it's still possible. There's still things you can fit in there without deviating for it too much, but you can still have these localized stories. So
Yeah, no,
I think
that's
that's
right.
where there's the hope for the people who want to see her to come back.
And if you are following along, these, I think it was Dave Filoni said, or not Dave Filoni, John Favreau said that these were going to be a little bit longer than what we saw in season 1, the episode. So
Right.
we've got the runtime of the first episode already, and I guess it's not a big spoiler because it's just time, but 52 minutes, I think, is what it's at. That's
Fantastic.
pretty good. That's significantly longer than the other ones. Now, you would probably want it to be a little bit longer since it's your first one. I don't think that's going to be the bar in terms of what everything's going to be at, but 52 minutes is a lot of story time, considering how much we got in, a lot less during season 1 for some of those episodes.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 8 to 12 minutes longer than most of the episodes in general were. But I'm with you. First episodes and even last episodes don't play by the same rules
Sure.
as everything in between. So
Yep.
curb your enthusiasm just a touch, but we have hope.
Yeah, no one's make a clone of Fennec double connection. That's
All right, Jeremiah.
genius. Yeah, genius.
Jeremiah's saying that they're going to clone Fennec.
Fennec Sean. All right, here's a really
I don't know
far.
how tinfoil do you have to have for that kind of theory on this?
Oh,
one?
he's got it on thick tonight. He's got several layers. He's doing like the heavy duty Reynolds wrap going
Got the
on.
antenna
Right
and everything going.
He's got antenna. That's right. Okay, so Mayfield's crew. So this is Jean, Ranzar, Berg, Zero the droid, and Quinn or Kin. Do you think we're going to see them? These were the buddies that he had that he ran around with a long time ago. We last saw them on the floating prison that the New Republic had.
Yeah, I think some of them are pretty real to come back. I honestly hope they don't in season 2. I'd rather see them like season 3. Well, let's have this break from them. But I think who are the most likely to be there? I think Xi'an, there was something there. Her brother, things like that. I think are more interesting. I'd rather not see them in season 2, though. To be honest with you, I just want to have this break. We don't need to revisit everything so quickly, and we know there's a season 3. So why not? Why not? Draw this out or put some of those stories later on. And I have the feeling that even when they were writing and doing these, that they already knew they were going to get season 3. This thing was wildly popular in season 1. There's no reason not to anticipate you have another season coming. What's the likelihood? I think the likelihood is probably, upwards of 50%, actually, sadly, but I would prefer to see this likely more like 10% and on the lower end, because I really don't want to see them yet. I'd rather have some time and some space and then come back and revisit, because we know that this, and here's the reason why we know this picks up right where we left off in chapter 8. So really no time has passed and very little has time passed since we've seen these characters. And so it's important for us to have some space, have some time, let them do something else in the meantime. So that when we do see them, there is something else we can explore within that, within their story, not just what we've seen on screen with the Mandalorian.
Yeah. This one's hard. I'm with you on this one. I don't really care. I mean, I hate to say that. I don't care to see them, but if they are there, great. How they get there, it's either going to be a tie back to, you go back to the X-Wings and, Razor Crest, stand down.
Right.
Maybe the New Republic finally finds these guys, and they're in the prison. They realize, what the heck just happened here? We've got droids laying everywhere. There's a dead soldier. These guys say, hey, it was somebody called the Mandalorian. Now the Mandalorian is on the New Republic's radar, which is why they're escorting him, or maybe that's why they find his ship and they're trying to get more questions and answers, or I guess more answers about what really happened there. That would be a way to tie them back. There's another part of me that says, well, maybe somebody like Moff Gideon liberates them, frees them, and says, hey, you guys want revenge? I need some people. He sends them off as like some suicide squad where they're going after and trying to find and track down the Mandalorian. Or flip that, and maybe the Mandalorian goes back to them and says, I need your help. I mean, that seems really far-fetched that they would even do anything for him at this point. But
desperate times, man.
Yeah. But he, depending on what he needs to do, especially if he's going into some, criminal underground area, maybe he does enlist their help and figures, if they die, they die. Again, kind of like the Suicide Squad. They're a bunch of, no good doers. And worst case scenario, they get the job done. The best case is they die and get the job done. I don't know.
Right. Everyone's a winner.
Well, everybody wins all around. Yeah, except for them. Okay, and then Omera and Winta. These are the last two. Are we going to see the ladies again?
Man, this is really tough. I know where your heart's at. You want to see them so badly.
I do.
I think there's a chance, though. what I'm struggling with is understand why we would see them. So maybe I'm just going to defer to you on this one and say, okay, if we see them, how and why would we actually go back and visit them? What do they bring to the overall story for us to where they would be important for season 2?
So I'm going to go with the theory that I had when we talked about them last, and that is if you're Moff Gideon, you're searching for, you want revenge, you want the Mandalorian. He's on the run. He's doing his other thing. He's questing, right? He's hard to find, hard to track down. You need some way to get him to come to you, right?
Right.
And I think if he gets wind that he had this relationship or he was there and somehow figures it out, and again, I don't know how we get there, but if he does that, then he could capture them. And I hate to say she's the damsel in distress, but she's got a kid. She's going to do what she needs to, right? And if the Empire's showing up, they're certainly going to that's different than a local tribe that's ransacking them. This is stormtroopers, ships all landing, coming in. They're not going to put up a fight. They're not going to be able to put up a fight. And so maybe he takes her and then gets the message out, hey, you need to come to me. Look who I've got. I've got, Winta with me, and I've got Amara with it. And that would be a reason for the Mandalorian at that point to go, holy crap, I do need to confront him. And we get that standoff, and there's a final confrontation there. That would be the only way.
Do you think that's important for his character development, though?
Who's that?
For Den. Do you think that's important for his, for just character development in general, for them to show up and to be in that position or anything like that? Do you think that's important for him specifically?
I think it pulls on what he is as a person. Like, is he the kind of person that would just allow that to happen and say, no, I've got a bigger mission here. It's more important than that, than this. And I just don't, I think it reaffirms what we saw with him and the child. Like, a lot of us went in thinking, okay, he's got the child and, he's going to let it go and turn it over. He's not going to go back for it. Right? I know there were a lot of people that were hoping that would be him, the cold, callous person. That turned out not to be the case. He's got a pretty big heart. If that holds true, then I think for him, it does if nothing else, all it does is reaffirm that he can't let something like that go, even though he really wants to and knows that there's a larger mission here, more important duties. He still has that personal connection. We know they connected. She almost took his mask off, so that says something about his relationship with her. But I think it just speaks to the importance of him seeing her as a long-term, when this is all over, I really want to go back to that life, and I had it for a little bit. Please don't take that away from me.
So does that chip away, though, at the mystique of the Mandalorians in general, though, to where if we start to get this impression, though, that he is wanting to pursue something outside of his culture, outside of his creed, does that chip away at what we like seeing so far, or does it enhance it? In your opinion, is it something that really enhances the story and brings us closer to the character, or is it something that really starts to erode at what we want to see and where we might be able to take this later on?
I don't know. That's hard to say. It really is, and only because I don't know. It all really depends on where they want to take this character and how they want to portray him.
Right.
I think everything's on the table right now. I think I like to believe they're redefining what a Mandalorian is. I think they're redefining what Mandalore will be. I think they're redefining what Jedi will be, or Force sensitives and all of that. So if that really holds true, then I think that's all fair game. If not, then you're right. It doesn't really do a lot for him. In fact, it goes in the opposite direction. So I think it's what you're saying.
I'll stop going off script now.
Oh no, you're fine. Imperial Moonwalker.
The reason I bring it up is because I know you love this story arc, the story aspect of things, and so I love getting your idea of where it might lead us.
Well, it's all made up in my head. Imperial Moonwalker Josh, host of Film Appraisers, says Circle gets a square. Jonesy, don't have to have the crew in season 2, but maybe in later seasons. So nice Hollywood Squares reference, by the way, too. I'll take Jim J. Bullock for the block.
God,
that's a deep cut for anybody that's watching or knows what Hollywood Squares is. So you're welcome. Okay,
are you going to plug the basement now?
Hey, join us tomorrow night on the basement. We're going to cover chapters 33. No, all right. Let's get into the new characters. So these are non-Mandalorians. Again, odds of seeing them, how and why. Let's start with pull the Band-Aid off. Cobb Vanth. Are we going to see Cobb Vanth in season 2?
Man, I know you and Mike love this character. I just don't see it happening, though. I really don't. And I don't mean to be so pessimistic about it. I just don't see it. I mean, first of all, I like the character, so I don't want to be. I'm not trying to ruin anyone's parade here. I like the character. I like the idea of what they did with him. I don't see how it fits within the story arc is the problem I have with it, of how he comes into it, unless they are going to structurally rewrite the character, which I don't think they would need to do, want to do, because the character's canonized. So I have a bit of an issue with that if they were to do that. But so I'm going to go with, I mean, really, I think this is like 10%. I mean, I don't, who's more interesting, Cobb Vanth or Boba Fett? And we could argue, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all, that, or anybody that would be like, we don't need Boba Fett. It cheapens the Mandalorian general. But if you're going to choose one or the other, which one are you going to choose, Albert?
Cobb Vanth. Hello.
Oh my God. You're such a homer.
No, so and I get it. We're talking about a character who had what, 3 chapters dedicated in a very condensed chapters at that. I mean, they were very small in a series that most people didn't read, to be frank. That's not true. I think if you're a Star Wars fan, you read it because you had to, and it fills in the gap, right? But your average viewer has no freaking clue about who this character is. Now, can be a pro and a con. It can be a pro because you're able to do a lot with this character. It can be a con because people may already have preconceived notions of who it is and didn't really dismiss the character. And to them, it's of no interest, right?
Right.
But for somebody like Cobb Vanth, there are, I think, some natural connections. One, he could be rumored to be a Mandalorian. They don't know. I mean, he's got the armor. He's on Tatooine. He's doing his research. And I'm going to rehash some of what we've already talked about because I'm still holding to it. But, he's doing the research and looking for other Mandalorians, which we know he's doing now.
Right.
And he gets wind that, there's a Mandalorian in a place called Freetown. And wow, okay, let me go there to Freetown and see what's going on. And in my head, he gets to Freetown, and I'm going to expand on this theory that if you've been following the shows, I've been giving you little pieces of it. He gets to Freetown and confronts him thinking, hey, this is a fellow Mandalorian. Things are going to go well. And Cobb Vanth gives him the cold shoulder, like, I don't want you in here. You bring nothing but trouble. I've heard about you. I've heard about the events, whatever is led up to it at this point. Maybe he's heard about that. I don't want you in this town. And actually turns out to be kind of like an antagonist for him. Maybe he captures him and maybe he locks him up and doesn't, because that's his whole thing, right? He does not want Cobb Vanth says in the Aftermath trilogy that he's setting up Freetown to be free of, and that's why it's called Freetown, no crime syndicates, no bounty hunters, right? This is a place where everybody can live. And suddenly you've got the Mandalorian coming in with his past. You've got Cara Dune. Maybe he knows about her past, right? Whatever else is coming in. And he doesn't want any of that, so he locks him up or has a confrontation with them. And I'll pause there because I'll give you the rest of that theory a little bit later in terms of what happens in my head with that one. But I think, so the point is, I think the natural touch point for him would be the fact that he is a Mandalorian. Maybe if he does have Boba Fett's armor, there's certainly that he's looking for as well. But yeah, I'll stop there because I'm going to go too far.
I don't have anything to add to it. I mean,
okay.
I think you've exhausted the subject. Well, apparently not enough because you have more.
I've got more. Yeah. All right. Ahsoka Tano. Sorry, got to do it. Ahsoka Tano.
I mean,
what's the percentage we see her?
We have confirmation she's in it, right?
Yeah. I don't think she's in the credits and everything. But again, it's kind of like Boba Fett, or at least Tamura. Every media source has reported that she is going to be in this.
Yeah, but if we believe that, then we have to put this like 80-90%. We got to put this pretty high. I mean,
I have it at 99%.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be. I don't know, someone that's got a little bit of wiggle room here of being not wrong.
I'm in the corner, man. I'm still painting away. I got no space left.
You might as well. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you've got, well, we're going to get to Sabine here in a moment, but I mean, I don't know. To see her on screen would be interesting. Yeah. At the very least, it would be interesting. I want to see what they do with her.
She's so is she in the series? Yes. Is it 90%, 99%? In my head, yes. However, I don't see her as a character that's going to be in it a whole lot.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I think she's a small dosage type character, kind of like we talked about with Luke a couple episodes ago. Is Luke there? Yeah, it's a cameo. Maybe he says one line. Maybe it's over the X-wing intercom, comlink, whatever, and that's about it. Same thing with Ahsoka. Maybe we see her in person. Maybe she gives them some orders. Maybe she helps them and guides them along the way. But I don't think she becomes a character who suddenly is traveling around with the Mandalorian. I just don't see that happening.
Exactly. And I like the idea of that this is a character that they're going to pursue and that they're trying to find. And so when we talk about Sabine, I mean, can we just go and talk about Sabine at the same time? Because
I had her down the Mandalorians, but go ahead. It makes sense.
Yeah, let's just go and connect them here. It makes a lot more sense to us to connect with Sabine in search of Ahsoka, right? I think so. I like this idea that we don't necessarily have to see Ahsoka, or like you were saying, we get just a very small taste of her. We don't need her front and center in the episodes. I don't want to see her front and center in the episodes. This is not a show about Jedi. Because if she gets involved, I mean, realistically in her heads, she has to take over for the child, right? She's not going to be like, oh yeah, he should probably go back to his people.
Right. Good luck finding them, because I don't even know.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, but for us to sync up with Sabine, however, in search of Ahsoka, and then Sabine knows, but Ahsoka has had to go on a different journey that could not include Sabine for whatever reason, makes a little more sense, right? And again, it gives us this idea of a MacGuffin, of something that we're questing towards. We have a lead, right? We have something that we are able to then strive to achieve. It's something that we are looking for, someone that we're looking for that can give us answers, and maybe we get little sprinkles of flavor in that throughout the season. So I would much rather, I mean, so this is the part where I have a hard time with. I would much rather see Sabine than Ahsoka at this point, because she just makes a lot more sense than Ahsoka does. And so I would like Sabine like at 95%, where if I have Ahsoka down like in the 80% range, I would love to see much more of Sabine, because she makes sense and she fits within the story that we're trying to tell, I believe.
Yeah. All right, I'll go back. I'm going to back down and go to 98% for Ahsoka, 99% for Sabine. I had them both at 99, but you've convinced me that I probably should bring that down a little bit and temper my expectations. So thank you.
But you've tempered them by 1.9%.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I did. So again, Ahsoka's in it. I think it's a very small amount. There's a trail here, and it's going to involve Hondo Anaka.
Oh, I love this.
Anaka.
I love that you put this. I love that you put Hondo in there.
So, and I have him later on, so we're just jumping ahead now. Actually, I think I have him next, don't I? And I have him at the very end. I was saving him. So Hondo Anaka. So he's a central character in all of the series, right? Clone Wars, Rebels. He's a Filoni character, much like Sabine, much like Ahsoka. I think it's highly likely that we see him. They've got him sitting over at Galaxy's Edge for everybody to see, so we know he's around even during this time.
Right.
But he would be a really great character to kind of be hey, I know all about Jedi. I know all about the Clone Wars. I know all about Mandalorians. He's seen it all. He's been through it all.
Even if he hasn't, he has.
Yeah, right. Even he'll tell you he has, right. But I think it would be cool to start with him. The trail would be they go to Hondo. They go to Hondo. He tells them, "Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. What you need to now look for is Sabine, and this is where you can find her." And then he gets to Sabine and thinks, "Okay, this is where I need to be." And then she says, "No, you're looking for somebody else. I'm going to take you to her." And they, end it there. And everybody at this point would know, okay, her has to be Ahsoka, and they save that, right? I like the idea that they kind of space that out, and they give us these little characters. And again, they don't have to be central characters, central figures, even if they are cameos, just to get them along the quest. I think would be a really cool thing for them to play out.
Right. I love Hondo. I'm unapologetic at how much I love Hondo. I love the voice characterization they've done for this, and the character, and like you showed, like you said, over at Galaxy's Edge, they've got him, so you actually see him, quote unquote, in person.
Yeah.
So I love this character. I want him. I think he's hilarious. He fits. God, like you were saying, he just fits so well. And again, he has this questing aspect to him of, like you were saying. We find Hondo, who is much easier to find and stumble over and go up with story than really anybody else who is completely not caring about anything else coming to the galaxy. These other people have agendas and they have things that they're trying to pursue, whereas Hondo is just he's just an honest guy trying to make a living.
Exactly, and he's got his hands in everything. I mean, we know he does. So it's easier to get to him than any of the other ones, and he can lead to a lot of other opportunities and a lot of other characters. So
and he's just so damn funny.
Yeah,
I just love the character, man. So what's the percentage then, Albert? I'm gonna let you go first on this one.
On Hondo?
Yeah.
I said 70%.
That's probably fair. I'd probably go 70, 75. I want it to be like 112%.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because all
I can see them skipping over him and just going directly to Sabine in the interest of time and storytelling. But man, it would be great to have him there. And then once you set that, I mean, you broke the seal. Now you can have him come back in season 3 and season 4 and help out and do all this stuff. I mean, he's
how many times did he come back? Like in all the other, in Clone Wars,
in Rebels he came in and out. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's just like a cockroach. He just keeps coming back. It's so fantastic that he is, and he's so very much Dave Filoni too. It's just fantastic. It's just great. Why not?
I had the other two in here. We won't talk about Luke. I had him at 5%, and I think that's probably high. I don't think we're going to see him at this point. 0%. Okay, fine.
I
Let's
still
move
get
on
0.
from Luke. And last one I had was Rex. I actually had Hondo last because I was saving him for last, but I had to use it. So, but Rex, do you think we get him in this season? What's percentage?
I'll give him a chance, but it's like 1%. I just don't think he's needed. I don't think he's necessary. So I don't. I like Hondo way better. Again, it's like what makes sense. And I think when you look at all the characters, how much do you have to tell? How much do they bring people up to speed? Rex just doesn't make sense. I love Rex, by the way. I absolutely a hardcore Rex fan, but it just doesn't make sense within this context.
Yep, I am with you. And the only reason I even put him in here was because we don't have confirmation of who Tomorrow's playing. And, I hate to say it, but if the worst case is that he's playing somebody like Rex. And that, again, to your point, I love Rex. Absolutely. You go listen to any of the episodes we've done about him, but that's not really a character that I want to see. And I could be wrong. Maybe there's something there and there's a connection there, but I put him either of them.
All right, so I have to backtrack just a touch. Is there a way that you could have Rex that leads you to Sabine and Ahsoka?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. I have a lead on an old Clone Wars vet, so on and so forth. They've been spotted in recent times. We know that he's been active, around, several years before, presumably still alive.
Right.
But yeah, there's those aspects of it that they're still very, very real that you could make the connection. I'm not saying that's not possible. There's just only so much you can do, and which characters would I prefer to see and think are more likely? I think they just stray away from Rex. Words are difficult, people. Sorry.
Yep. Okay.
We've made like the second show we've done like in 2 or 3 days, so give me a break.
You're getting like triple dosage here. Like we've done 3 shows
work.
Now in like less than a week. So
this is hard work, brother.
all right, we're going to use this quote. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me. So I've got a list of Mandalorians, and it's a small list. Don't get me wrong. It's a small list of Mandalorians. And I want you to tell me the same thing. Do you think we're going to see them? How, why, all that? What are the odds? And we can, and so let's start with Boba Fett. Did we talk, did you give me a percentage on him that we're going to see him?
I don't think we did.
I don't think we did. Not yet. So what's your percentage that we see Boba Fett?
Oh God, this is a war inside my chest, man, because I don't want to see Boba Fett at all, to be honest with you. But I gotta be honest. I mean, it's starting to stray 60-70%. This is almost like this is the guy we see at the very end of the season, almost of, what's the big reveal for the season finale rather than a season opener. Yeah. So I'm starting to put him at like 60-70%. I mean, someone's got to be there. I mean, someone's got to be on Tatooine, and I don't know. I'm so torn on this, but I don't know. What do you think?
I'm coming around, and here's how I got here. Here's how I got to Boba Fett and how I'm coming around to him. For 2 things. So Boba Fett is somebody that I think is very likely at this point to be in the series. So I'm putting him almost at 90% at this point. Okay, first off. I've always been concerned that he's going to overshadow the Mandalorian. I think if they portray Boba Fett as somebody who's frail, down in the dumps, isn't who he used to be, lost his way, has some self-doubt. And I know I'm trampling on a lot of people here because they're like, whoa, this is Boba Fett, calm down, dude. But I think if they put him in that, and they put him in that light, and really focus on the fact that he's never been successful. I'm sorry, folks. He's not been very successful as a bounty hunter, at least what we've seen on canon, right? I'm not talking about Legends. Legends, he was a god and did all kinds of wonderful things. But he got stomped on throughout the Clone Wars. He was made fun of a lot. I mean, we can go to Return of the Jedi, and I made this argument many times before. He is a character that has always looked cool. We all love the character, but he's never really had his moment. And I think if they come in and say, okay, he's at that point, he's bottomed out, he doesn't even really consider himself to be this, then I don't have a problem him coming in because he's not the same character. He's a shell of a person that we all like to think he was, or maybe he thought he was. Okay, so let me start there. Now, going back to the story on Freetown and Cobb Vanth. So he goes there, they have the confrontation, Boba Fett's locked up, or not Boba Fett, the Mandalorian is locked up, or they have this kind of confrontation, and suddenly, who appears? Somebody like Boba Fett, who then goes in and says, hey, dude, you've got a Mando here. I'm protecting the Mandalorians. This is one of my kind, or whatever. And again, he has a big turnaround moment here. And you have my armor. You've got my property. I want that back. And it turns out that really the character we thought who's the bad guy, or the good guy, being Cobb Vanth, turns out to be the antagonist. And the protagonist in all of this, certainly who comes to the rescue, is somebody like Boba Fett. And now you've got Boba Fett, who's now been a redeemed character. And stay with me. He's now a redeemed character, still a shell of who he is. He's a lot older. He's not who he used to be. but he joins the Mandalorian. And now you've got the Mandalorian, and you've got somebody who's trying to live up to what they used to be and find their way now alongside a true Mandalorian, and maybe he becomes part of this group that goes back. And so now you really are pulling all of the true Mandalorians back together. And I think it does a lot for Boba Fett's character, because it gives him a second chance. And, God knows I'm a sucker for a redemption story.
Wow, that's a lot of
Tell me I'm
exposition.
wrong. That's fine.
That's a lot of exposition, man.
This is what I do at night. I sit here and lie awake thinking about these things.
There is 100% truth to that, folks. There's 100% guarantee that Howard is going to stay awake thinking about fan fiction. I think the thing is with Boba Fett, though, again, and I think the way that you're describing it, we have to really focus a lot on Boba. Excuse me. We have to focus a lot on Boba Fett. Is that too much? Does it become more about Boba Fett, and we're trying to catch up with Boba and trying to figure out what we're doing? Now, Clone Wars did a pretty good job of balancing this, about bringing Boba in, but not making it about Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And so if they can do it, I have no doubt that Dave Filoni and them have an idea of how they can do it, because they've done it successfully before. But I'm worried in this context that it might start to overshadow, and then leaving that character, does that leave a void, so to speak? Does it leave some gap that we're struggling to feel that we've lost something, rather than we've enhanced what we're going towards? I think that's always been the fear. That's always been the concern about Boba Fett bringing in, is that he demands too much of the spotlight, because we actually know who Boba is. And I'm with you. Boba, quite honestly, has been kind of a loser his whole life. We've built him up to be this amazing bounty hunter and this amazing character, but what we've seen on screen, not so much. And I would love to see some redemption for him. I'm not arguing that at all.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would there's just got to be something. You can't be left with a void when we're done with him. And if you give him that opportunity to redeem himself, it's really hard to leave that character at that point. It's really difficult to leave that character, and I'm worried that would be detrimental to the season in particular, at least to that episode, if that were to happen.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm only on board with this. And to your point, again, he does overshadow. I think if they come back and he's the Billy Badass he's been all these years, or at least in his head, or the way we like to think of him, then yeah, I think it's too much. You've got to start explaining all kinds of things. But if you bring him in ground level, bottomed out, then yeah, you don't necessarily have to explain that, because that's not who he is anymore. He's a new character. He's turned a new leaf. All you need to do is explain who he is at this point, and maybe you leave the other stuff out there for comics and all that stuff. But the idea of him going through a redemption arc and becoming a true Mandalorian in the light of Great Mandalore, following the Mandalore, right, and all that, I think is pretty compelling. For me, it's compelling because I think it redeems him in a lot of different ways, on a lot of different levels too. But
then you start saying, okay, we have to. All right, so let's take a step back, Albert. We're common Star Wars fans, right? We're not necessarily steeped in the wool, as you have liked to paint us as sometimes. Why would Boba Fett not be wielding the darksaber, and we have Din wielding the darksaber at that point?
Why would he? Because he's not.
Why would we not have him do it? So because I know you're a firm believer that at some point our Mandalorian will unite the clans and wield the saber and things like that. But from a layperson perspective, not demeaning that at all, but just from a kind of a general fan's perspective, if we have that rather than Boba Fett, I'm left scratching my head a bit, because Boba Fett.
Yeah, because Boba Fett. Boba Fett he's never been a good leader. We saw that in the Clone Wars when he was leading his group of people, or the other bounty hunters, right? That was a debacle half the time. He's never had any true leadership skills there. He's been a loner. He's never been one to be kind of like leading the group. I wouldn't consider him to be somebody that would kind of rally the troops, right?
Right.
And on top of that, so apart from that, right, the leader characteristics that we don't see in him, have never seen in him. Not saying he can't get there, but beyond that, you've got to realize how old he is at this point too. And I'm not saying he's like ancient. He's not like Rex, but I see him more as a Rex character. Like, hey, I used to be this thing. I can still help out. I can still be effective on a team, and I really want to be a part of this, and I really want to get my life back together and make it meaningful in some way. That might be an option for him. The only problem that I have with this, the only conflict that I really have with this, and to kind of poke holes in this, he is, unless something really drastic has happened, he does not like Jedi, right? They killed Dad. They've made a mess of him throughout his entire career. So the idea that he would be on board, and maybe he's not, maybe he's just, okay, I'm all about Mandalore. And then what do you mean we got to go find a Jedi and what the, that's a conflict of him. Sort of like, I guess like kind of like Kanan was with Rex too, that dynamic of, hey, I don't want anything to do with these guys. Eventually they did come around. So, I mean, you could argue that that would kind of flourish, but I would put the Mandalorian, I guess, over to answer the question. The Mandalorian seems like in a better position to lead. He seems more open-minded. We know a lot more about him, and we don't have anything to believe that Boba Fett has ever really been able to have the characteristics you would think would be indicative or conducive to somebody being able to lead, be a true leader, and a leader of not just a small group, but of entire freaking planet, right, as a ruler, as the Mandalore. That's a lot. Right. That's a huge task, I think, to ask of Boba Fett.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay.
We could probably dedicate a whole hour to just this topic, by the way.
Right, yeah.
But in the interest of time, we will continue forward.
Sabine, we've talked about. I think I've said everything I need to do about her, and we've talked about that. I had her at 99%. So, okay, here's one we brought up, and I know you were excited about Fen Rao. Fen Rao from from Rebels.
Man, I would love to, from this historical aspect of it, like we talked about before, just that lore. But I got to be honest, I'm seeing this really, really low, like 5-10% at best. I just don't. Again, if you're going to rate some of the other characters at a higher percentage, you have to cut somewhere. And unfortunately, I think this is a character that's going to get overlooked. I don't think that it's not part of the discussion. I think especially from Favreau and from Filoni. But what do you have to do to explain some of these characters? What do you have to do to be able to bring them together? Again, you only have 8 episodes, so you have to take that in consideration. And I just 5 or 10% at best. Unfortunately, I would love to see this character come back, though.
All right, I got him at 60%.
Oh wow!
So here we go again. I'm going to give you more of my headcanon here. I told you I was going to put myself out there tonight.
Do you have a website for fan fiction?
I do. Please go to www.iamcompletelylost.com. So if the only way I see we get him back is if this narrative of him going to Concordia or Mandalore and showing up there at the very end, tail end of season 2, I think he's one of the people there. And again, it ends on, hey, we need to liberate Mandalore, or we're on Concordia, or wherever we are. We need to liberate Mandalore, or whoever's there. And I think he's the perfect person to give us the exposition. They did it with the Darksaber, right? That we know that his allegiance is to Bo-Katan. And I think this is our good segue into Bo-Katan, because I think it ends, I think at some point at the very end of that season, if he's there on Concordia as well as everybody else, he shows up with Baby Yoda, he shows up with Boba Fett, and you get somebody like him who's giving you he fills you in on the background. Here's what happened. Here's what happened with the Great Purge. Here's what happened to Mandalore. Here's why we need to rescue it. And we need to go free, and we need to rescue our true leader of Mandalore. Her name is Bo-Katan. And that would set the stage for them. Maybe they talk about her. Maybe they show her at the very end. I had her on here. We can talk about that too. But at least in his mind, everybody is still, if she's still alive, assuming she's still alive, she is still the rightful ruler of Mandalore. He has her weapon, technically speaking, the Darksaber. But I don't know. I think that would be his role. And I don't think you need to give him the full exposition. I don't think you need to give him all the background on what happened with him and who he is and everything. For most people, I mean, we didn't get that with Rebels. He showed up, and over the course of a number of really 2 seasons, we got more and more of who he was. And originally, he was a bad guy, right? He wasn't really with the Rebels. He finally churned and went to the Ghost Crew, Phoenix Squad or whatever. So yeah, we didn't necessarily get all that. It would be just cool to see him, because I think he is a pivotal character that we don't know much about in terms of what happened to him at the end of Rebels, and whether or not he survived the Purge. I think he does. And again, I think it'd be a good way to say, let's get you up to date on finally what's going on here with the Purge.
So my question to that, Albert, is should the armorer fill that role rather than Fen Rao?
I think it's Fen Rao only because the armorer has not been there. And in my head, he is still connected to Mandalore. Like, he's not left that area, where these guys are on the run. They're more nomadic. I think his allegiance is still to Bo-Katan, and he's been staying there. He's got more exposition, more details on what's going on. I don't think he's a leader. He's just an advisor. He's the guy that's providing the information, whereas somebody like the armorer would be the natural person to say, okay, thanks for getting us up to date. We need to put a plan together. Here's what I think, and I'm the de facto leader right now in Mandalorian. What do you think? Kind of thing. I see her in that role more.
Okay, because I kind of see it the other way. I see the armor fulfilling that role, and if we want to bring Bo-Katan into it, that leads us to Bo-Katan through the armor rather than introducing Finn Rao or reintroducing Finn Rao in that respect. And we kind of bundle it up more into a single character that we already know. We don't have to spend a lot of time with because we already know she knows a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She speaks cryptically in a lot of this stuff, right? She doesn't want to give too much. It's as much the journey as it is the where you end up with her. And it's more about growth and then the your personal development almost. I like that aspect of it a little bit better than saying, okay, we're going to bring this other character in that's going to fulfill a similar role to what we have, but it's also in addition to this, and then we're going to lead to somebody else. So I like my perspective. I like the idea that we bundle that in with the armor. We keep that with the armor because we've already, she's awesome. I don't think we have any disagreement there, but we have this. We know she knows a lot. We know she knows the history. We've kind of bundled this all into one character. If we want to bring Bo-Katan in, though, yes, we have this character already ready-made. We already have the relationship established with the Mandalorian as well, that we can go and then say, okay, here's, this is the person you need to find out. Presumably that Bo-Katan is still alive, which I'm on the fence about whether she is or not, though.
I know, and I'm with you there. I agree. Like, it's really hard because if she is the leader of Mandalore and the Empire has taken over and they've come in and done something, they're going to probably execute her. I doubt they're going to put her into prison. So you got to think either they do for some stupid reason and she's still locked up like in a citadel or not in the citadel, but something similar to that, right, on Mandalore, then maybe. But more than likely, she's either gone or she got away. And I don't like the idea that she got away because then it really screws with my headcanon as to of rescuing somebody and freeing the once and future king, the great king and all that, a queen and all that. But yeah, I'm with you. I can go either way. There's no reason to believe that she would be alive. I'm just a big Katie Sackhoff fan, so maybe I'm just wanting to have her show up.
No, I'm totally. I would love to see her on screen. I think it would be great. And again, is it another underground cell to where she did get away in that respect? And she's, again, it's more of we've had to go underground. There's a story aspect of that. I think that would make sense. But I'm with you. If you're the leader, and all this bad stuff has happened, presumably your leader has been taken out. I mean, and it just seems to be more logical than somebody else who has risen to the need for a leader and risen and grown into this leadership position like you want Din to be. And again, if you've got Din and you've got Bo-Katan, then why would our Mandalorian all of a sudden be the any kind of leadership type of position, right? So you almost have to have Bo-Katan out of the picture in that regard.
Maybe she pays it forward though. Like you think about, remember Sabine was the one that had the sword, and Sabine was like all set and primed to be the leader of Mandalore, and she's like, no, you know what? This isn't me. There's actually somebody better, and it's Bo-Katan, and she handed the sword. Maybe Bo-Katan's like, I had my chance, I failed, this is what happened, and now we've got this Mandalorian named Din. I'm passing the sword on to you to become the Mandalore.
But there's so many things that have to happen. I mean, she had the lineage, she had the exhibition of leadership. We have none of that from this character, though. And this is the problem. This is a bit of the issue I have with him being a front and center leader and actually unifying the clans. We have to see something with him that says, okay, I can actually bring a general body together rather than need them to rally to my support, which is what we had in season 1, rather than actually, rallying them to him, rather than rescue type of mission and things like that.
Yeah.
We don't have that aspect. We'd have to have a really significant character development for that to be the case, which is why I tend to not be on the same side of him raising the Darksaber and actually leading the United the Clans. I just don't, it's difficult for me to, in season 2, it's difficult for me to get to that point where we left off in season 1. Maybe I'll give you the benefit of the doubt here, buddy. But that's the thing. There has to be a lot of exposition and a lot of development for him to get to that point. And if Bo-Katan was present, and again, I kind of like I don't need our Mandalorian to be the leader. I like him with this kind of Lone Ranger type of idea. I like him being able to branch out on his own. I think it gives us a lot of story flexibility, which I love, which I think is very important for this. And quite honestly, I think it's vital to the Mandalorian culture in general, right? And we can kind of come in and out of what we want to on it.
Yeah.
But if Bo-Katan's present, how is she not the leader? Because we don't just hand over the leadership if you've been doing this for 20 years or 10 years.
Yeah, and so So all I'll say to that is I agree. Like getting this in season 1, and I just lost Jonesy. Hopefully he'll be back. So hi, thanks for joining us tonight. This is the Cantina Cast episode 3. No, so he'll be back, and in greater numbers. So just stand by. Okay, so to be clear, for the Mandalorian to take over as the true leader of Mandalore, I don't think that's happening at the end of season 1. Hey, look who's back.
I'm back. God.
So Jonesy, as I was just telling you, we lost Jonesy there for those of you listening to the podcast. He's back now, and everything's fine here. How are you? So, to be clear, and I just dropped my Apple Pencil. Now I'm not going to be able to work. Okay. The Mandalorian coming back or becoming the leader, the Mandalore. I'm not saying that's at the end of season 2. I still don't, even with everything that I've had and all this crap I've been spewing in terms of theory and speculation, I don't think all that happens until like season 4 or season 5, right? I think at the end of season 2, if all of this does happen, and it's likely not going to, my thing is he's there, and it's through the events of season 3 that he proves to be a worthy leader, and at some point, all that gets handed all over. So that's all I'm saying. I'm with you. Like, there's not enough. You can't set it up for him to suddenly take over as a true leader of Mandalore. That is the end product, I think, for me, in my head at least, for the series, right? For however many seasons that is. And you've got the baby and all that stuff still going on. But I think that's where we're going with the Mandalorian. And I just want to get to Mandalore because if the show is called The Mandalorian and we know about the Mandalorian, I think we need to have more about Mandalore and Concordia and history and all of that. I think that's really what Filoni Favreau really wants to sink his teeth into. So I think we got to get there at some point.
Right. Yep.
All right. Okay, let's get into some of the main characters in the last hour here. No, I'm kidding. Maybe. IG-11 and Kuiil. Any chance, and I'm going to grab my pencil. I'm going to step away. Any chance that we'll get either one of those guys back in season 2, or do you think they'll come back later in season 3 or 4 for some reason?
This is where I give a one-word answer, so Albert feels compelled to come back way too quickly. But no, no, I think they're gone. And that's unfortunate. I mean, Kuiil was a cool character, but I don't think there's any way to bring him back except in some sort of flashback type of thing.
He was cloned, right? No.
Yeah, right. And, I mean, Ugnaughts, and there's a connection. Anyway, but IG-11, though, we've talked about this because we've seen with the comic with IG-88 and what they're able to do. But again, do you go back to the well again and bring him back a second time? I just don't think it's necessary. So I'm going to go with really like almost 0% that he comes back. I would love to see him. He was a really cool character. We know Taika Waititi is involved with all of this, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think we need to do it. I think we have other stories to tell. So I'm going to go with like 5%. Like, actually, I think it's like 0%.
I think it's 0% for Kuiil. Maybe you throw in a 10% for IG-11, but then we get into, now we're getting into Legends and all of that. I just don't think all that was set up. I think they're retconning a way to explain a character that they didn't want, that, became more popular than they wanted. And I just don't see them doing it. I think they're good with how it ended there for him.
I agree.
Grief Karga. What's something new for Grief Karga that you think that we're going to see? And then give me something that maybe you think is going to be unexpected.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to know what depth there is to this character in the first place, because we've not really seen any depth to this character at all. We've seen him. We've seen the greed side of things. We've seen the pride aspect of it. We have seen his bewilderment. But again, where is he actually at? We know he's in a position of power now, but I really honestly don't know what kind of growth we've actually seen. Is he quote unquote a good guy now? I mean, that seems less likely, because again, there's a lot of self-interest in this character, and I don't know that we see some redeeming quality about him. And actually, I kind of don't want to. I like the ambiguous type of character that we have here with him, that maybe he's in a position. It's kind of like what we have with Lando, right? He's kind of become a Lando type of character with, we have this shady-ish past, kind of doing something on the legit side, but at the same time, he's still a bit of a scoundrel. He can do these things that we don't necessarily agree with and we don't necessarily like. But again, I don't see the overall. There's no connectivity for him to be a redeeming character. I didn't answer your question at all.
No, that's fine. No, you're good.
Because I don't know. Because I just don't see. I don't know where we draw on that connection for him.
Right. and we're getting into like the main characters. So at this point, it's even, I mean, you could argue it's even a better chance or even a more slim chance that we're going to get anything right because we just don't know where they want to take the characters, especially these ancillary characters or the not ancillary, but the supporting characters, the main supporting characters. So for Grief Karga, the one thing that I think we find out is the new thing we find out is he's he's in some level of power that he's never been because now Navarro has been liberated and the Empire is gone. Not a big deal. I really don't think there's a whole lot there. I think he's probably key if we find that Mando has to find the Mithral, he's got to go back to Grief because Grief would know who paid for Mithral, right, to be captured, where that puck came from, and so that would lead him there. I think more than anything, they just joined. I think his motivation to be with Mando in season 2 is simply because the child saved his life, and as did Mando, and there's a friendship there. So maybe he feels obligated to at least see this out and get the child back to where he needs to be because he was saved from him. And yeah, that's kind of cliche, but it works, right? And then as far as something unexpected, I had down here that he's ex-Empire. I don't know. I'm making stuff up at this point. But what if he is?
Seems reasonable. I mean,
what if he is ex-Empire, right? And what if Kara finds out after they've been working together, and how does she feel about that? And what does that say? Maybe that's how Moff Gideon knows him or knows him well, and why he was sweating bullets when that was going on. No pun intended. When they were in the cantina there, Navarro.
Yeah,
okay,
we'll have a past.
Cara Dune, what's something that something new and something unexpected?
Well, and you and I have talked about this. We really want to know what she's done.
Yeah.
Like what's the red on her ledger, to borrow from another franchise? What is it that actually makes her this hiding from the New Republic as much as from the Empire? I mean, and what has gone wrong? We know her motivations for what she was with. We know a little bit of her backstory with the rebellion. We know a little bit of why she might have left. We know of some of her frustrations, but we don't really have a lot of concrete evidence as to what that is. And I think we want to, and I almost think we need to, especially if we're going to bring her back in. What drives this character? Let's round this character out a little bit more than what we have. We have some good things to build on, and I think that's fantastic. But we've really got to round her out now, and we've got to figure out why she really has this really ingrained fear. You and I think we both agreed she has this really ingrained fear of being caught and what it means, and it's almost both sides, Empire or New Republic. She's worried about both, and so I think that's the part we need to see. We need to make sure we get this story. We need to at least get more sprinkles of it. Do we need to throw it in our face? Do we need a backstory? Do we need a flashback? No. But do we need little aspects of it to help us, again, to continue to build on the character throughout the season? I think that's the best way to go. And that's what I would love to see. And something surprising about her, I think, again, is, what is it that she has done that's not so kosher? What's the thing that she's done that really threatens to break the group apart, that feels fundamentally wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know that there's enough to really sway the Mandalorian, so to speak, because he's very much a deeds type of person in what he sees. But I think from an audience perspective, what is it that we have trust in with her? And what was that one deed that seems that it was over the line to where we question whether we like the character at all?
Yeah.
Once we learn it, I think is kind of the interesting part from our perspective.
Yep. So I'm with you. I think the new thing would be, okay, here's what I did to the Empire and why they're after me, right? If that turns out to be the case, I think that's the new thing. If we go down the path of the Mithral being held by the Imperials, I think she's got an added incentive there to be, I'm going to come with you because why not? Let me go, bust some heads open on some imps, right? So there's a bonus there for her to go along in freeing the Mithral. And then I guess the new thing that, or the unexpected thing would be what she did to the New Republic, right? So we've toyed around with that. Is like, okay, we know she's wanted by the Empire for her past work. Maybe there was something more there. But what if she is wanted by the New Republic because she did something that was shady, or she's been chased for that?
Right.
I think that would be unexpected. I think we're all expecting her to have like a clean background in terms of the New Republic, but it may not be the case. And I like the characters that are a little bit dirty like that we've got to, dig into a little more.
All right. Character that we're all curious about, Albert. I'm going to let you take this one. Lead us into Moff Gideon. What do you expect to see from him?
The new thing that I'm expecting to see, I think we get a reveal as to who he's really working for. My head tells me it's something along the lines of like a Snoke.
Yeah.
Whether they say his name, I think is fair game. It wouldn't be that drastic if they did, because we know he's around at this point. We know he's pulling the strings. He is doing a lot of, again, if you go down and we haven't really even talked about this, about the child and what he wants. And I know it's a little bit later and it was brought up earlier, but what do they want with the child?
Right.
If it goes to, they're trying to use midichlorians to rebuild the Emperor, or they want to clone him and use his DNA to help rebuild the Emperor who's on Exegol, then Snoke is probably a part of that. And Moff Gideon has been tasked with ensuring that the child makes his way to Exegol or wherever they're going to do these experiments to help bring the Emperor back to life.
So do you actually think we get a name drop though? Or do you think it's kind
Implied.
of more of an implied statement, not necessarily a name drop of Snoke or something like that?
Yeah, I don't think they have to say his name. I think we know enough about him, and as little as we know about him, I think you could say something along the lines of he's been around since the time of they quote something very similar to what we heard in The Rise of Skywalker and how long he's been around, or something along those lines, or they mention that he wears gold robes, or they call him a weird name, something like that. Something like
Gold
that.
Slippers?
The gold slipper guy, yeah. I think that would be enough to be like, like that's the meme from whatever that is. All right, anyway, so yeah, I think that's enough. I don't think they have to say his name. I mean, if they want to hit it on the nose because they want people to, I'm not really opposed to it as well. I know people don't like that, but I wouldn't be against it if they did.
I'm with you on that one. If they name drop Snoke, I think that would be okay, especially if it was more of in a hushed manner. Again, we have to understand where exactly are we at with the reveal of the First Order, and it's not real clear exactly where we're at with that right now, of where the events with like even Bloodlines and with this have all they all transpire. And so I think it's important. I think this is something that we could get with Gideon in particular, is that we start to get this idea or this connection of when this starts bridging into the sequel trilogy of when do we start getting this more connected tissue to where we feel like those connections are more clear and they're more visible to us. And I think this is the character that we could do it with. And are we going to, though? I'm kind of with you. I don't know that we don't really need it. We need to know what his motivations are, though. I think we have to know what his motivations are of this. And I think it's hard to establish that without some greater good, because I mean, why would you need this special gifted child if it's not for something grander with the Emperor, with Snoke, or whatever you want to call him at this point?
And then I guess the unexpected thing is, I think I would unexpectedly like to find out. Does that make sense? I would unexpectedly like to find out that who trained him to use the Darksaber, who trained him to use a sword or a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Because if you're Han Solo igniting it on Hoth and cutting open a Tauntaun, fine, right? We know it takes a high level of precision. This is something that's carried over from Legends. It's been in canon. No one can just pick up a lightsaber and wield it. And if he's going to go toe-to-toe and have some kind of prowess with it, he's got to have been trained. So who would have trained him to use a lightsaber, right? Such as the Darksaber. I think that opens up a whole lot of possibilities. Maybe it's some Jedi that was forced to do it, or maybe it's an Inquisitor or some failed Inquisitor. Maybe it's some somebody that was serving the Empire or serving Vader that we haven't heard about or seen at least on TV or in film, but maybe in the comics. I think that would be interesting. That would be the one thing I would think that would be unexpected to see. Oh, whoa, this guy was actually trained by somebody. I'm not going to say Darth Maul because he's dead, but somebody along those lines, like that had some kind of expertise in lightsaber combat.
Yeah, I mean, again, we so desperately want to know how he got it. Yeah, and I think some of that goes with what you're talking about of how did he get it and how is he able to wield it? I'm probably a little bit less interested in how he learned to wield it than where he got it from and how he acquired it, what that path looked like, rather than that aspect of it. So I think that's kind of where I would rather see the story focus on, because there's a lot of different ways you could explain how someone is proficient in combat with a melee weapon, right? And we can argue. I mean, we all know that from a lightsaber, there's a lot of things you can do with a lightsaber that require a very special person or a Jedi type of character. And you brought it up last week, deflecting blaster bolts and things like that. Do not come to the layman when it comes to wielding a laser sword. So there's some of that. I wouldn't expect him to do that type of activity, but where did he get it? How did he get it? Who did he get it from?
Yeah.
Where was it at when he got it? There's so many great questions that we could have answered with that. And I would rather get those answers. And I think we need to have at least a little bit of that history with the Darksaber brought back into this season.
Let's talk about the child. Give me one thing that's new, or I'll go first, and then you can answer.
Yeah, please do.
The child. So something new and something unexpected. I had for the child, something new was his name. And we've mentioned this. I think he gets a name finally. I don't think we keep calling him the child or dancing around the fact that we can't address him on with a pronoun or a proper noun. I think that's going to happen. I think we give him he's going to get a name now, whether it's a formal name or whether it's a pet name or a nickname or something like that. I think that's kind of where the key differentiator is. I'm going with it's a nickname, not his official name, right? He's going to do something or some aspect, some personality trait that we've not really, they've touched on maybe a little bit in the first season, but really kind of surfaces in the second season, suddenly gives them a name. I think that would be cool. The unexpected thing would be anything to do with the force powers. But if I had to pick one, I think unexpected would be new force powers that we've not seen before, which I think would be neat. Even though, again, it's not a show about the force, but you got a force sensitive character, so why not take advantage of that? If I had to pick one power though, that I thought would be kind of would throw a wrench in everything, would be the ability to speak with people telepathically. So maybe, and it doesn't have to be with everybody. I'm not saying he's suddenly going to be speaking telepathically with Din, but if they meet like an Ahsoka, and she suddenly realizes, holy crap, I can talk to this kid, or at least I can sense him, right? I can understand what he's trying to do and what he wants. That would be a cool dynamic, and maybe that extends into somebody like Sabine or I don't know, whoever else they pick up. But having been able to speak telepathically would open up a lot of avenues and not kind of always have this thing, well, we can't really talk to this kid and we don't really know what he's doing or what he wants or what he thinks and all of that. And certainly if it plays into the, Ahsoka and him, resurrect the jet, they go back to Lothal and suddenly they erect the Jedi temple again. Well, they've got to be able to communicate. And so maybe that's the way that you kind of cross that bridge and fill that gap. But all right. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, when you pose the whole name idea, which I've not really been on board with, but I started thinking about it a little bit more. And I think what I'd like to see is the idea of a Mando type of name get applied to him. So you're taking like a pet name. I don't view it as much as a pet name as something of Mandalore history, right? Of how they would reference Jedi or as they would reference something of this sorcerer type of ability.
Yeah.
And they apply that to him, which I think fits the mold you got to have in mind, at least a little bit of we don't have a name because he doesn't have a name. I just believe he doesn't have a name, but can we give him a name that has some sort of other meaning within the Mandalorian culture?
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what that would be. I didn't go into that level of detail on it, but I think something in that they could bring something to the forefront and do that. I think that would be really, really neat. And I think that would add to the culture that you and I have talked about that we kind of feel like is maybe missing in some of the Mandalorian stuff that we got from some of the Legends material, that the cultural aspect of it that we would like to see brought forth in this. I think the series is a great conduit to be able to do that.
Yep. Justin says, calling it now, they're going to get to the reveal of the Jedi before they end the season. Yeah, they're
pretty real chance. Yeah,
right. We know that they're out there. So I mean, Luke's out there, and you've got the Church of the Force is out there. You've got people like remnants of like Chirrut and Baze and all those guys. I mean, there's other people out there that are force sensitive, and so I think all that's going to come out and it's going to surface here probably at some point. So
I think at the very least we're going to get a lot of reference to it, and we're going to get a feeling that there's a lot more out there than we recognize and that we understand right now.
Yeah. Okay, and then lastly, and we've probably already talked about this to death, so we don't really spend a lot of time here, and then we'll get into the lightning round and call it a show. But Din, anything new, and then anything unexpected?
That's tough because he's got all these. He's like the onion. You just keep peeling back layers of what's going on. The part that I would love to see more of, to be honest with you, is the whole foundling idea. Like, so what is it? What does it mean to be a foundling, and what does it mean what are those major milestones throughout that progression to where you become a Mandalorian, and then when is it that you don the helmet? And help us understand what that actually means to don the helmet more specifically, and maybe flash back and see those moments where you make that decision, you make that commitment. You are now accepting the creed. You are saying the creed, whatever it might be, whatever that moment of transformation is. But for this, for people in this time of their life, of when they make this final commitment to being old, to be part of the Mandalorian culture. I think I would love to be able to see that and get more insight into that. That's not really surprising or anything like that, but I think those are things that when we see character growth based on what we've seen so far, I would really love to see that aspect of it, to where we understand what does it really mean to be Mandalorian.
Yeah. So you took my answer, so thank you.
Oh, snap.
No, you're fine. So what I had on this one. So let me preface this by saying one of the show. There's a little show that came out years ago called Lost, and I'm a huge fan of Lost. I could do an entire podcast if I wanted to on it because I'm that big of a fan. So now that I've vetted myself, one of the things I liked about it is they did all these flashbacks and flash forwards. And in the flashbacks, you learned a lot about what the character was experiencing in real time and why they were making decisions and doing the things they were doing in present time because of stuff that happened in the past. So my answer for this is what's something new? I want to see the flashbacks, but I want to pick up right where we left off. Okay, now he's with the Mandalorians. What does that look like? That's cool, but it needs to have direction, and that's where I go back to something like Lost. I want to see what happened and why he dons a helmet. Why is it important? But I want to see that have an effect on present time, and it doesn't have to be major, right? But it would be nice to be able to. That would be the trigger point. Something's happening in real time, and suddenly, boom, he flashes back to where he left off, and we get to see more of it. And then next episode, same thing, we get in the flashback, and it all leads up into some kind of major event, at least in that stage of his life, that we see shadowed or has an impact on what's going on in present day. So the answer is more flashbacks, and something new would be what training was like and what life on Mandalore, or life as a Mandalorian at that time would be at that point.
Right. And Josh agrees with us there. Imperial Worker continue showing more of the lore. We can't get enough of the lore. We just can't. Yeah. So love to see it. I agree with you, Josh.
My unexpected was what I've already rehashed a million times over, and that's the very end of it, and him suddenly holding the Darksaber and knowing that the next part of his quest is to confront whoever's on Mandalore and liberate that and help out with that. So,
so this is a little bit different take though. So maybe I've missed it, but so you believe this is like the lead in for the season 3 of
yes,
now I have it, and now we are the next chapter, the next arc is the unification of the clans, or the retaking back of what's rightfully theirs.
Yeah, and Jeremiah did a good job of summarizing what I was trying to say, and I probably did a terrible job, so I do apologize. But season 1, season 2 is Empire. Gideon, we get past that. Now he has the Darksaber. The next stage of this whole story arc is season 3 and 4 is really the liberation of Mandalore and whoever is there, and then it ultimately culminates in him becoming deemed the true Mandalore now at this point because of the actions that he had in season 3 and season 4. He's proven that he is a natural leader, and he's united all the clans, and more people show up, and he's just getting all this help from everywhere, and there's a big battle, and everybody goes home happy.
So is it okay if he hands that to somebody else, though, for you?
I think it would be okay. I think it wouldn't be out of character for him, too, honestly.
Okay.
But I don't want to see it, but I wouldn't be against it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, lightning round, and we'll call it a show because we're coming up on 2 hours. Who is in possession of the Darksaber at the end of season 2?
I'm with you. It's either Den or I'm just gonna go with Den. Who else makes sense at this point?
Yeah, and really the question is, does Gideon still have it? Is it Mando or is it someone else? I'm going with Mando. He has it now. Whether or not, I don't think. Again, in my theory, Bo-Katan is still there somewhere and needs to be rescued because she is truly the leader, and that actually technically belongs to her. And I think he probably does give it to her back at some point, but it comes back to him later on, again, season 3, 4, very end of the series finale. But plus, he's got to be trained on how to use it. He can't just wield it.
Right. Yeah, and I'm with you. I don't think it keeps it. I mean, I know you said you didn't like that, but I don't think it keeps it. But since we don't know who is involved, it's difficult to pinpoint it exactly. But so we'll go with Den, and with the likelihood that he's handing it off to somebody else.
Okay. Who dies in season 2?
Oh my goodness, Grief. I'm gonna go with Grief Karga.
Oh, Grief Karga. Wow, tragic. I had the Razor Crest temporarily. Like I really feel like that thing is done.
Is that a death then? I mean, come on.
It can be rebuilt, so no, technically
Yeah.
it's not. But it is. I mean, this thing has got it's a piece of junk. Like this thing has been taken apart. It's been shot down. We see it sputtering into that planet and crashing maybe on Ilum or some ice planet. I mean, it's really had a hard time. But I keep going back to that scene of Mando and the child on a boat, and I'm thinking, why are they just not flying around the Razor Crest? Something happened to that ship, and it's out of commission. And I called that before we saw what may be confirmation that it was the ship that crashed on the planet when it's spinning around in the most recent little trailer thing. So,
Okay, but is that an emotional loss for you?
no, it's not.
Okay. Is
I
there
don't
an
want
emo-
anybody to die.
Well, that's not the question, dude. This is your question. Come on, man.
These are
So,
these
all
are
right,
all my questions.
Right. So all right. So let's rephrase this.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
of the main characters, that's not an inanimate object like a ship. Well, I guess we could argue this with all three, but what character, humanoid type of character, might we lose that would have that type of effect on you? Or like what we did with Quill.
I'm with you. I guess it's Grief. If I had to pick one of the main characters, it's going to be somebody like Grief Karga. I mean, if we're
Right.
talking the main characters, Grief, Kara, Mando, the child, it's Grief before Kara. Does he die a hero's death? Maybe. I don't know. We can. That's a pure speculation.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going. Like, he has that redeeming. Well, you get to see. It's not a redeeming moment, but you have he's not a terrible guy, even though he's got a lot of self-interest.
Sure.
And that's why I hope they continue with the character of being a bit more self-motivated in his own interest. But he has these little moments where you're like, okay, like Hondo. Like Hondo's a great example of this too, right? Where we have a character who can be a good guy when he chooses to be.
Sure.
As long as he's got something in it for him.
Right.
And he's cool with it. And I kind of I hope Grief fills some of that void that we've had missing from a Hondo type of character, which I always found immensely enjoyable.
Okay. Will the Mithral? Yeah, I thought about that too, but he's just, unless they establish him as a main character, like the Mithral, we threw out, Pershing as somebody that may be joining the crew. Maybe it's a Boba Fett who joins the crew. Maybe he does die finally, and he does, as part of his redemption arc, he dies in season 2. Whatever.
That's
right?
a hot take.
It is a hot take, right? There you go. What about, well, we kind of already answered this. Will the child have a name, and what will it be?
Yeah, like I said, I really like the idea that he is given a Mando name, something that has significance to the Mando culture. Don't know what that might be, but I really like the idea that something, I mean, hopefully it's not Little Mudhorn or something silly like that, or the Mando translation of Mudhorn, but I mean, something like that would be all right,
Yeah.
that we have some culturally significant name or culturally interesting name that would then be applied to him. And I think this really leads to some of the things that you've been talking about over the course of our review of season 1, of this connection that they have and really having the child be part of the Mandalorian culture. And I couldn't think of a better way than for them to assign a name to him that has some sort of cultural significance.
Look at Tuan coming in with the heavy hits.
Death of the Armorist. That would actually, yeah. So
tragic and dramatic.
Right. Death of the Armorist would be tragic and dramatic. And absolutely, that would be awful because she's amazing.
Yeah. I think that would rub a lot of people the wrong way, but it would be powerful. But again, well, no, I was going to talk about death and its meaning and all that, but, Rise of Skywalker kind of threw a lot of that out the door. Kylo Ren. So, Ben Solo. Still mad.
Stop it.
Okay, yeah, I had the same thing. Yes, he's going to get a name. And you said little Mudhorn. I had little Mando. So kind of like Little Wayne, but all right, I was just joking. I don't know what
Mandoito.
El Mando, yeah.
El Mandoito.
Mandoito. Who is a character we've not talked about yet that you either predict we see or hope to see? I've already answered this one.
Oh, God, we've talked about so many characters. Who's left?
Yeah, according to us, everybody's coming back for season 2.
Yeah, I mean, is Lando coming back too?
Hey, there you go.
Seriously, I mean, he was in Rebels, right? And we know Billy D loves coming back and being Billy D.
He's too old.
It's a
what
great
if they
decision every time.
what if they brought what's his name back in?
You have to be more specific than that.
Yeah, Glover.
Oh, Daniel, or yeah,
Donald.
Glover. Yeah, that'd be Daniel Glover. Yeah, Donald Glover. That would be really cool, actually. I wouldn't mind that. I'm not against Lando, to be honest with you. I don't know how he fits, but that would be really cool if they brought someone in like that. I mean, again, a character that can maybe not add anything to it, but doesn't necessarily distract from everything. Lando's a great character and an important character in the whole saga, but can you bring someone in who, again, at any given, well, no, at this moment he's a pretty known property. I don't think that makes sense at all. All right.
Yeah,
I'm
I
there.
don't. Yeah, it's hard because we've mentioned a lot of the more probable people, and at this point, we can really just pick anybody like Lando or Wedge or
Snap.
Ezra. Yeah, Snap Wexley. I mean, who knows? It's really hard to say. But I had said Snoke, but we ended up talking about him, and because I put him in. I remember I did all these questions first, and then I went and filled in the blanks, and I realized that as throughout it, I was like, oh well, I'm already kind of answering some of these, so I had
Yeah,
Snoke down.
So things like Snap are an option, though, right? I mean, we have X-wing pilots. We know this for a fact. We know this is several years after the events of Aftermath, which Snap is still a younger kid, so he's coming of age. We know he's his stepdad is effectively Wedge. I don't know exactly when that'll happen, but Wedge is his stepdad. So we know he's coming of age in all of this too. So someone like a Snap isn't really a far. We kind of joke about it, but it's not really far-fetched idea. It's entirely possible, especially if it's a first mission and stumbling across somebody and escorting them and blah 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 and all that kind of thing. So it's a not necessarily a throwaway character, and you'd get Mr. Bones, maybe Mr. Bones.
There you go.
2.0.
Let's just throw Mr. Bones. If you don't know who Mr. Bones is, go read the Aftermath series. He's great.
You're in for something.
You're in for a treat. Okay, what about will we learn what the client wanted with the child, and do you have any final theories, solid theories on what it is that they ultimately want with him?
I mean, are we in agreement? We kind of have to know what the hell the Empire wants with him at this point.
I think we know. I think we're going to find out. I think we both agree there. But what?
Oh, what is it? I mean, the only thing that seems to matter is a Snoke Palpatine connection. Are we going to get that? Are we going to get absolute confirmation? No, I don't think so. And I don't want absolute confirmation. I don't want everybody knowing what is actually happening. But do I want something that tells me that there is something afoot that I can then make the connection to, and that you can make the connection to, and our listeners going to make it? Absolutely. I would love to have something like that bridges that gap and says, ooh, okay, this is now possible. And then we have a completely different tangent to go down to. So yes, I think we need to know what the client wanted, or what the Empire in general wants with the child. And I think it would be fantastic for us to get an idea of what the actual end result of that would be, or who it's for, a little more specifics, but without doing it in a real specific way. That was totally vague and contrary, but
no, I get it.
Yeah.
You're right. So I think we do, I think we find out what they wanted, not maybe specifically, but to your point, I want it to mean something. So just tie it to something. I don't care what it is. If I had my druthers, I would say it ties back to the Emperor. And I'm going to stick with that because I said that from the beginning of season 1.
Just makes sense.
And for me, it makes sense, but I may be completely wrong. But if I keep on this and I'm right, they'll never hear the end of it. So I'm going to keep on with it. So I hope it ties back to Palpatine in some way.
Yep. In the chat, we had Jeremiah, what about Han or Thrawn or maybe Poe, and those types of things. So I think, some of this is also who would play them. I think it is the difficult part. Thrawn has a huge question mark about where he's at and what happened after.
I mean,
Rebels.
you bring Thrawn, you got to bring Ezra now, though. I mean, they're tied at the hip right now.
Right. And I think realistically, we're looking at a different aspect of the franchise when we bring those characters in. We want to do something specifically with those. So I find them less likely. Poe is an interesting one, though, because I think Poe, from a character perspective, would make a lot of sense to be possible. But it's also about Oscar Isaac and his ability. Is he going to show up in this? No, he was in Resistance, though. He lent his voice to Resistance. So I think there's always these possibilities. I mean, you could always even bring in characters like Phasma or to those, something to that effect, those types of characters. I'm not saying Phasma specifically. And you've brought, the Hux boys into the conversation a couple of times. But Poe would be an interesting one, actually, but I just don't know if they could get Oscar Isaac to do it. There's no indication that he's involved at all.
Why do I have it in my head that Poe is not old enough to be, I don't know. I can't do the math right now. I don't think he's going to be old enough. I mean, unless they bring him in as a teenager or a really young kid, I think he's still pretty young at this point.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, because with Luke and his mother in the tree, I think he was still a baby or maybe not quite born. I don't know. It's hard because Oscar Isaac is older than probably the character he's trying to be.
Yeah, I don't know. If somebody wants to look that up while we finish up here, feel free to pop it in there in terms of what his age is at this point. So remember, we're 9 years past Battle of Yavin, 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
Right.
So
And
whatever
Twan had
that-
a great, and again in the chat, Twan had a great, he was totally thinking Poe because of his shady past, as a possibility. And again, I like the aspect. It just does the timeline work.
well, then that
Albert,
but that butts up against the book, which I have somewhere over here, and that didn't happen. Like it wasn't really,
okay.
it wasn't going on during this time.
There you go.
Okay.
Sorry, Twan.
Yeah,
Nice
nice try though. It's a good thought. Where are we at? We talked about flashbacks in season 2. We've already answered that.
Right.
I said yes, and we already talked about why. Okay, and last thing, do you have any? And I've already answered this one too. Do you have any bold predictions? Things that just like are so far out there that we're going to be wrong, but but we're reasonable, right? Don't say Palpatine's back and then dies again, and when we see him in Rise of Skywalker, that's his second death, third death.
Right. I mean, a bolder prediction would actually see like a Snoke on screen, which would be, I think, completely almost not possible or not relevant, not going to happen. But yeah, what's actually, I mean, the characters we have, there's really nothing to really, aside from like some new force power or something like that. It's, I mean, are we going to see, kyber crystals? Are we going to see a cave on Ilum with things glowing at you? Through the child's eyes. Actually, I'm kind of like feeling this way out. It would be interesting to see something through the child's eyes, of what the child actually sees, where we have kind of a third person type of view. And it would be really great to be able to have some idea of what is going on in the head of this kid and what he's able to see, especially if he comes to something that is more force sensitive, or something that speaks to force sensitive people more than, it's in the layman to people like us.
Yeah. And mine was really, I've already spilled this many times, but it's about Boba Fett, because as much as I didn't want him in here, I am fully on board now with the fact that if he does show up, I'd like to see him actually go through a redemption arc. And the bold prediction would be that by the end of season 2, he's actually one of the good guys, and a whole new character that we're going to learn about more in season 3. So, and if you want to know how we get there, if you just join us or whatever, go back and listen to my crazy headcanon stories. So, all right. So Jeremiah said, yeah, mocking us because we took everybody in, or we mentioned there. Hey, you know what? This is a page right of Mike Rondo's book. If we throw enough stuff out there, something's got to stick. And then we come back and go, called it. Told you we nailed it. We told you we called it in this episode. And we get to put that on our resume and hang our hat on, put a feather in a hat for. Well, there you go.
It's pretty important to us, I guess.
I don't think anybody has done a 2-hour, almost 2.25 hour prediction show that I've seen so far. So you're welcome.
So what's always amusing about these, when Albert and I talk about these ahead of time, we're like, yeah, it's 30, 45 minutes tops. There's no way we could fill an hour. Here we are pushing 2.25 hours and just hitting our stride.
Yeah. So, this is why I just need to stick to fan fiction and stop bringing it onto the show.
That's right. Go to earlymedia.com/fanfic.
Right.
That's not a thing yet, but
it's not. It may be. Hey, before we get out of here, let's do some feedback, because I know we've gotten quite a bit. Let me do the first one, and then you can pick up the ones from the more recent show. Let me make this a little bit larger because my old eyes can't see this. This is from Kay Brianna, who's with us tonight. She's right there. Lucasfilm, take note. That's her. I started listening in the spring when the world started to implode. Survival teaching from home was draining me, and I would go for an hour-long walk around my neighborhood every day after work, and needed something to listen to, and had been searching Stitcher for any podcast that had done an episode taking a deep dive into the dyad and had made everyone's heads explode, and everyone's heads explode a few months earlier, and I was not disappointed. I've been working my way backwards, and I've been a dedicated listener and viewer on the new episodes ever since. Thank you for getting me through some of the hardest months of my life, guys. May the force be with you always. So thank you, Miss Kayla. That was, I mean, honestly, the fact that we do this show is just an honor and a privilege, right? We get to come on here and talk about Star Wars sometimes for 2 hours on end, right? On top of that, being able to do this, and this is not the first time we've heard this recently, from, Jonesy and I, from other folks, either in person or feedback, other avenues or outlets. The fact that we are doing this and it is providing some kind of relief in all the midst of crap that's going on with COVID and homeschool, asynchronous learning and whatever else, work and all that. I mean, it's just a huge benefit, and it's very humbling to think that we actually have an impact, a positive impact on people that we don't know. So, so thank you for the feedback, and thank you for your support.
Yeah, and we enjoy it too. And on behalf of Mike too, I know Mike had such an important role in things, especially while I was gone. So yeah, on behalf of Mike, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm sure he appreciates that as well. Okay. Yeah. So not to leave our friends over in Discord. So again, if you want to join us in Discord, we have a lot of conversation. earlymedia.com/Discord. You can go in and participate. Not only the Cantina Cast, but all of our great shows, including Albert's on the basement as well. But we had some feedback from the last show, which is really fantastic. It seems to have kind of struck a chord with folks. So we're going to read a few of those. So from Cab, who's one of our Patreon members, another incredible show, Albert and Jonesy. I know I'm in the minority when it comes to really enjoying the politics of the Star Wars universe, but this episode touched on so much of what I find interesting. So huge Cab, longtime supporter of ours. We got to meet him out in Chicago for celebration, and appreciate that. Yep. You want to take the next one from?
Sure. This is from Obi-Wan Phil, again from Discord. Podcaster Albert, Jonesy, one of the best podcasts you guys have done, in my opinion. I like all the topics you guys discuss, but this was different. It wasn't a breakdown of something that tangibly exists in the universe. This was a deep dive into a specific topic that had no known answer. I love thinking about these things, this kind of stuff, throughout the endless possibilities that Star Wars brings us. Bravo, gents. So, awesome. Thank you so much, Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and we like doing things that are a little bit different, and we have kind of a formula. And Mike, of course, back in the day, did all the dissection stuff and all of those, which were fantastic, and kind of put the Cantina Cast on the mark. So it's fun to go back and do some things that we don't typically do.
Yep.
All right. And one last one, Fan Solo, I just listened to. So he's getting on the bandwagon here. This was a real treat. Thought-provoking to the nth degree. I always like hearing and thinking about the historical reference and drawing parallels between our history and the Star Wars storylines. You went into so much detail. It was like a dissection of the question. Thank you, guys. And then lots of fun emojis after that. So a huge testament to you, Albert, with bringing in the real-world comparisons there for us to bringing us in. Yeah, there you go. Take a bow, my friend. But yeah, we love making connections with what we know and what we find on history, because it's all relevant, because this is what the writers have done historically and what they're continuing to do, and there's such a vast amount of information. So
yeah,
fantastic job, Albert, bringing that in for us.
Spoiler alert: most of what you see in Star Wars is based on reality. So
yep.
Hate to break it to you, but it is. Just look for it. And thank you, Fan Solo, for the question. That was his. So yeah, again, it was a listener question that we got, and thought, wow, we can do a show off of this. So we did. So
yeah, glad we hit the mark with the one who asked the question.
Yep, no promises
important.
that we'll do that next time.
Right.
So your mileage may vary. Okay, well, let's get out of here. We won't be back again till Sunday. I know that's just a few more days away. But we're going to come back on the next episode. 348 will be all about the first episode of Season 2, Chapter 9, whatever that's called, and whatever it may be. We'll break it down, probably to the nth degree, as usual, and have some fun with it. We'll get to figure out how much of this we got right and how much of it we got wrong. I'm in the category that we got a lot of it wrong, but we'll see.
I'm not holding my breath. We got much right.
Yeah, but it was fun, and man, I love speculating on stuff that probably isn't going to happen. It's just a lot of fun to do.
Right,
Any final words to get out of here?
Mike's yelling at us in the background. We should probably get out of here.
Yeah, 2 hours and 17 minutes. Anything before we go?
No, I'm afraid to do anything extra.
Okay, before we go, no, I'm kidding. We'll see you guys on Sunday. Thanks for everyone who joined us on the live show. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast, and may the Force be with you.
Thanks, guys.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.